Welcome to What Would It Look Like, a podcast that inspires and empowers you to build transformative movements by living with one foot in the world we have not yet created. I am your host, Ebony Isis Booth. I am a life alchemy coach, cultural strategist, and fly auntie. I believe and hold at the center of my work that healing is possible, magic is real, and love is the answer. It's from a place that I coach and guide cycle breakers through the inevitability of their own growth and transformation. I help people move from unworkable to unfuckwittable through a Black womanist lens that prioritizes healing, radical self love, and liberation. I am joined by artist, producer, co conspirator, and creative accomplice, my friend, Jonas. Together, we're going to take a coach approach to the work of liberation. Hello, Jonas.
Hi.
How you doing today?
I'm good, actually.
All
I'm
right.
good. I'm good.
It's episode 2.
Yeah. Boy. And is it ever episode 2?
Is it ever episode 2? So we launched What Would It Look Like last week. October 19th, we dropped our first episode, The Language of Liberation. Shout out to us. Insert air horns. Bam, 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 bam. And I mean, I wasn't prepared for the feedback that we got initially on a couple of different levels. But, I really like to look at it from a perspective of peaches and pits. Okay. So just give us some moment to celebrate some of the peaches of last week's launch and the feedback and what we were able to accomplish with this idea of sharing our thoughts and our strategies for how we can create actual change and foster transformation in the Black liberation movement. What were your peaches? What stood out to you last week?
Well, I enjoyed it. I listened back to it. I really loved it. I thought, it was really great. I enjoyed listening to us talk, just trying to be as objective as possible. I thought that
Mhm.
it went really well. And also the people I shared it with, my father hit me up. He was like, "Yo, that was amazing." I have a very close friend. Her name is Jezebel, that has really been somebody who has we've talked about so much in this liberation space and radicalism and all that. I showed it to her and she was super moved. She actually sent me an audio note, which I could forward to you. So
That's what's up.
yeah, got a lot of love. And I think that, you know, we obviously shook it up a little bit, and then there was other stuff.
Yeah, but we're still on the peaches. We're
Okay.
still on the peaches.
That
And
was good peaches. Delicious peaches.
and I love first of all, shout out to Jezebel. I love the name Jezebel. I love it as like a radical reclamation of some of the tropes that we hear, the connotations associated with Black women, but the name Jezebel is powerful.
Right.
AF. I love it. So shout out to her for the feedback. Can't wait to hear the voice note.
Mhm.
Some peaches that I had for the week last week is a dear friend of mine, EJ, who was like, yo, this is like, I'm not even a podcast person, but I'm already like nodding, laughing, weeping at one point, talking about,
Wow.
yeah, when we talked about the care of our utterances and making sure that we're calling in the world that we want to see rather than like repeating the the calls for what we don't want, and
Mhm.
giving more power to the things that the systems that we want to dismantle, um or do away with, or not take with us into the future. So that was really beautiful. Um, Dr. Wells, who's one of my mentors in the giving all the glory and light to smart Black women around the world. Dr. Napoleon Wells hit me up and was like, I'm definitely subscribing. I like what you guys are doing here. It's very necessary. He was also one of the folks who gave us early feedback about the show. It was just really positive. So across the board, I noticed that we had a lot of peaches. We were also able to connect with Graffiti and Julius at the Pod, or at the Plug podcast agency, who was able to get us on with distribution and welcome us into the family with our show and our concept, to help get things going and operationalized to get the show to the people, which is really exciting for me. So those are some of the peaches from last week
Let
that
me
I
let
want
me
to
shout
share.
out Graffiti. Let me
Shout out.
shout out Julius, and let me shout out the Plug Network.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what
They
I'm
got us
saying?
on. So yeah, it's big things that are happening and I'm
Aguan.
excited about it. Big things that go on. I don't
Big
know.
things Aguan.
That feels appropriative. I am not a Caribbean
Oh, okay,
descendant.
okay.
So
Okay, all right. But, it was celebratory. But yes,
yeah.
nonetheless, Bantu knots for white people. That's what that
Don't
was.
listen. Don't let the head wrap fool you. I do not speak patois. So
No, no, me either. Me either.
okay, so those are some peaches. Not all the peaches, but those are some of the juiciest peaches. Now,
Mackinac peaches, Jerry. The
yeah,
Mackinac
man.
peaches. That's what I'm talking about.
So there was, there was a pit, there was some pits, perhaps, that
A
came like a, a,
singular
a
pit.
pit, a
A
pit,
pit.
a pit. But it's like one of the ones that you like didn't see coming. So somehow I feel like I bit down into it. Um, I didn't quite chip a tooth, but it left like a nasty taste in my mouth. You ever get a peach that's so ripe and like you break it open and the pit breaks open too and it has like that fuzzy slime inside? That was kind of what this particular pit felt like. So why don't you share, because it feels like you were familiar. You saw the pit coming before I did. So
I didn't see the pit coming. I knew of the existence of the pit. The
okay.
pit is my stalker. I
Oh my
have
god.
a stalker.
Whew.
I
Okay.
have a voracious, ferocious, focused, and intense stalker who has been stalking me for the better half of 13 years.
The better half of 13 years or all of 13 years?
It's either 13 or 14. He either started in 2010 or started in 2009.
Oh my
Maybe
god.
even 2011. So maybe just 12. Perhaps I'm overshooting. Nonetheless, that's entirely too long.
Okay.
So this gentleman, I
Yeah,
want
that's
to
a
talk
long time.
about how he
How did the
came
pit show
into
up?
our life. How did the pitch show up? So we posted it, and then, Ebony called me up the next morning. I was like, "How you doing?" And she was like, "Well, we have our first troll," and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's not." And then this troll virulently attacked an associate of yours,
Yeah.
left comments all on this person's, like on 20 posts, talking about her connection to you
Yes.
and you and your connection to me.
Yes.
And ultimately, this person has done exactly that, which is harass people around me. So this person contacted you and they
Yeah.
were like, "Are you okay?" And they asked
Yeah.
if you were okay
Yeah.
because there was a crazy harasser
Yeah.
on her page. And lo and behold, you had also received this message. You didn't really have context for it. You received something in your inbox with weird links,
Yeah.
phone calls.
Let me speak to that. So like I don't, first of all, I believe that Instagram is a place of ill repute.
I love that. It is.
I have been working on my relationship to and with social media and its relation to my mental health and the mental health of like all people in the world. Just it's a constant struggle, right? I understand its necessity. I'm not always. I understand its purpose. I'm not certain of its necessity, I guess I will say.
Increasingly more so too.
Increasingly more so. But lately it has been also, yeah, we'll get to that. So lately, in these past couple of weeks since October 7th, certainly it's been important to highlight, human rights injustices. And then sometimes I'm curious about even its efficacy in that regard. But I feel like Instagram is a problematic place. I don't really do IG and had only been on there so that I could promote the podcast.
Mhm.
And when I got this inbox message, it was like a series of it was in my like in the crates of like people that I don't follow. And the only reason I checked it is because we're sharing posts. So I figure it might be somebody who follows you and doesn't follow me. Boom. I go in and I see
Which
a
is true,
series. Yeah,
somewhat.
right. Like I didn't know,
Yeah,
I didn't know this was a pit. Like I said, I'm
right.
like, is this a peach? And I'm gonna open it up and it's gonna be a pit. So it was not a peach. It was a
A
bunch of like,
putrid thing.
yeah, it was like
Mhm.
how you call yourself a professional. It said something about assault. There were like 2 articles linked in it, and then there was a missed call, all in consecutive order from this person. And I was just like, immediately all my troll Russian bot alarms went off, where I was like, because you get, I don't know, my DMs don't be the place where there's like, my DMs be dry. Okay. There is only Russian bots and, you know, hello, madam, how are you today? You want to increase your follower count kind of thing. So I just assumed that it was trash, and I deleted it and blocked the account. When I went and saw that the account wasn't private, I was like, oh, okay, well, block, delete. We don't engage, whatever. Done. Then I get this text message from a colleague of mine who I have worked with. I have been featured on her podcast, is a colleague, associate, and even would go so far as to say like a friend, right? Sends me this text message. She's like, girl, are you okay? Because this person has posted on either on 20 or more of my accounts several versions of this same message. And I eventually had to block them. And so then like my stomach dropped and I was like, oh, this is not a troll. This is targeted. Then the comment made me feel some kind of way because it calls into it, and the reason I was immediately reminded of it is because it calls into question my professionalism, my work as a coach, my role in the coaching industry, and then made some claims saying that I was using anti-Semitic tropes, and even though tropes was misspelled, anti-Semitic tropes, and what else did it say? Calling for violence against all white people. So
Fallacies.
the lies.
Never happened.
The
Never.
lies.
The lies.
So I immediately was kind of like, I don't know. I had a lot of reactions over the course of the day and thinking about that ranged from, so what? It's Instagram. It's the House of Ill Repute. This is what happens there. To is this a manner of safety? To, of course, people are going to disagree. We knew that when we started. When we said that this is a Black liberation podcast, we knew that there was going to be beef. Like there was going to be smoke about it because, the answer to the question inherently is that no, some people do not want all Black people to be free. And one could ascertain from this series of messages sent to this particular individual using the language that they chose to use that this would be someone who would emphatically say, nah, I don't want all Black people to be free. So that was how the pit came to me yesterday. And then I kind of knew that Jonas had mentioned that he had a stalker, but I didn't really think that this is what that was until I noticed the very targeted and deliberate claim that he was making toward you in this message that he sent, without using your name, but talking specifically about the he that I am collaborating with on this podcast. So that is how I came about the pin. Him.
I am
Him downstairs. So what? So yeah, here you go.
Okay,
Now,
so then you called me and you said, how you doing? I said, how you doing? You said, I've been better. I said, why? You said, we have a troll. I said, no, it's a stalker. And I said, let me tell you about the stalker. So let me tell you about the stalker. Okay.
Yeah, let the people know.
About 2010, I received an inbox on my Facebook message. I was in a band called Black Hearts, and my bandmate also received this message. And it was from this guy who basically said, his great-grandfather used to be the CEO of Walt Disney. He was plugged in with the Illuminati. He was going to make sure our career never took off. We messed with the wrong person, blah, blah, blah. I'm mystified as to who this is. Well, to give some context, around this time, we in Black Hearts, I was very much in my debauched era of all forms of degeneracy. And one of them was the company I kept. One of the company I kept was this man's ex-wife. And to give this context, not in any sexual capacity, I myself never engaged in anything even approaching sexuality with his ex-wife.
I did not have sexual relations with
With
that
that
woman.
woman. With that woman.
You gotta laugh to keep from crying. You know what I mean?
I
Because
mean,
this is
I
crazy.
didn't though. I
I
didn't
know.
though.
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
so like I said, without getting to the specifics of my debauched era, I was engaging in some regressive practices, including perhaps some unmentionable illicit substances. Perhaps some of my friends were engaging in some questionable behaviors in certain fields, and this person wanted to engage in both of them of their own volition. Now, without getting, again, it's very difficult because I don't intend to shame anybody. I'm not mad at anybody. But I just want to make it clear the source of this person's anger is that his ex wife made a series of choices, big adult choices, that rather than attributing to her and taking out any of his frustration on her, he decided to glom on to me and my bandmate and attribute all of the dissolution of his marriage, because it ended up being that, to me and my bandmate. Now,
Mm.
the nature of what happened to this woman is that she began to engage in these same practices. But to give more context, their relationship was fraught with a ton of tension before. This person is,
As far as you know.
I was privy to it. I had witnessed it with my own eyes.
Oh, okay.
Like his obsessive, controlling, angry behavior, her somewhat insolent or indolent, you know what I mean? Very, she was perhaps not the obedient wife he had asked for. And he was not the comforting, caring husband that she had asked for. And all of the rancor that comes with that was manifesting before my eyes. And perhaps I
So you
exacerbated it.
okay.
Perhaps. So, because by sheer proxy of giving her an outlet for her malfeasance. Okay?
Mm,
So, long story short is, he became aware of this, and I can only guess as to what this young woman told him about my relationship to what had caused her to engage in these behaviors. Undoubtedly, probably fed me some stories that were untrue about his nature and told him stories about our nature that was untrue, all to indemnify herself from whatever was going on. I
okay.
hope I'm not being too circular about it. You know, I'm
I
trying.
mean, I
I
feel
think
like I
I
get
feel like
it.
I'm being clear. Okay,
I think
so
you're being I don't think you need to like work so hard to like paint a picture as much as to say like what I'm gathering from this is like this was based off an extramarital relationship where this individual felt scorned and sought revenge and targeted
against me,
you and
but
your bandmate.
who was not in any way, shape, or form
Yeah.
related to.
Like listen, this is not Will. We are not sitting around the red table. This is not Will and Jada, and August
Mhm.
Alsina is not in the building. Like this
Yeah,
is a thing that happened a very long time ago that had absolutely nothing to do with today, October 2023. So like, but I hear you. And I'm grateful for the context, but I just don't want you to exert so much labor trying to like clean up the circles
right.
of
Okay.
this mess.
Well, so let's just get to, rather than what he perceives as his just aspirations of terrorizing me,
Mm,
what that actual terror involved. So he proceeded, post this initial message, to attempt to sully and smear the name of the Black Hearts with all of our potential working relationships. At that point, we were signed to Warner Brothers. He was sending emails to Warner Brothers. He would check our tour dates. He would send information, these tour dates, accusing us of being child sex traffickers and heroin dealers. This is just flat out fabrications. He was attempting to say alarmist things to, just for that very notion, ring the alarm. Now,
okay.
it never worked. He comes across extremely unhinged to everybody. I have never really been in an experience where anybody's taken him seriously. And it's not just his clearly not well thought out accusations, but just the sheer nature, like you said, he's typing furiously, misspelling words, coming across very unhinged. Nonetheless, he then proceeded to target. He never was overtly targeting me. He would target things around me. Eventually, he glommed on to my father. And for
Mm,
8 years, he proceeded to call my father virtually every day, 6 times a day, making these same accusations, threatening to get my father, a full fledged American citizen, deported. And
Mm.
and to give more context, this is, yes, you guessed it, an alabaster admiral, a white male on the warship of white pathology and aggression. He
Oh,
is an
man.
alabaster admiral,
Okay.
the Mayo military. So
Okay.
anyway,
Well, okay.
this man,
Oh, Lord.
yes, because we have to talk about the way that he found it to be well within his province to weaponize institutions. He has
Yeah.
been, and furthermore, to give more context to this person, as much as I understand, to be frank, like I said, I have empathy, I have compassion. He struggles with particular mental illnesses. This is undebatable. Every single person, starting with his ex-wife, I believe even he has mentioned that he is on the spectrum to a more severe degree
So
than
were you
perhaps most.
having interactions with him? Were you, like, communicating with him? How do you know this as far as, like, what he has communicated to you? Was somehow through the unhinged texting and
No,
calling and
no, I
ranting?
didn't glean
Okay.
this information. I didn't armchair prescribe or armchair diagnose. I was
Okay.
told by his ex-wife he is on the
The
more
spectrum.
severe end of the spectrum. You know,
Okay.
he
Okay.
is. He is. So this is, and but yes, his behavior reinforced that
That
information. It didn't
okay.
contradict it, right?
That there's
So
some perhaps some neurodivergence that is
some
causing this
neurovergence. You know what I
behavior
mean?
to seem normal in his makeup.
Ah,
And
I don't want to say that. Not to
no?
seem normal. No, I don't want to normalize this behavior. I don't want to use said mental illnesses or said spectrumy behavior to in any way, shape, or form indemnify him of his
Okay.
volition, of his choices.
Okay,
Yes,
well, then
he
if that's the case
simultaneously has this illness
okay.
and is malfeasant, is malevolent,
Okay.
engages in chicanery. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
this person basically, to my understanding, is fully financed. Like he's almost an invalid, and he is fully financed by his parents to live his life. Now, this harassing behavior he engaged in with me, he engages regularly with other people he targeted because, again, of the malfeasance of his wife. He would trail her and find other relationships where she engaged in, frankly, extramarital business and harass and attack these people. I can speak to some of these people. Some of them are prominent writers. Some of them are prominent musical artists of the rap variation. They're not all black males. Some of them are white males. Some of them are not necessarily Caucasian, European, like, for instance, one of them, a friend of mine, a great writer, he is a Jewish American. So there's definitely not a racial makeup, but he engages in harassment and targeting to deal with his emotional turmoil about his marriage and perhaps any problems he has in life. This is what he does. He goes out and he harasses people.
And
So
projects those issues onto you and making you responsible for
the proverbial
suffering
you,
as a
whoever
okay.
the you is, like
Okay.
whether it be this writer, whether it be these rappers, whether it be me, whether it be my ex bandmate, you name it. So it's not just me he's doing this to, right? He
Right.
makes it like, and the reason, that's why I bring up the fact that his parents, I believe, fully is he clearly has all the time in the world.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So furthermore, he proceeds to harass my father. And let me give you some more context. It's not just phone calls. My father is a yoga instructor. He
Mhm.
called the yoga studio my dad taught at and threatened to blow it up. He would essentially engage in what is very, very realistically can be termed terrorism. He attempted to
Mm.
terrorize my life, but it was just ineffective. So much so that for the lion's share of it, I just brushed it off. He would go away, he would come back, he was engaging, he was doing it with all these other people. And so finally, my dad, around the time of the pandemic, he really had enough. We're talking about 8 years,
Yeah.
an Obama presidency. You know what I mean? 2 terms, And so 2 terms, you know what I mean? This guy, 2 election cycles, So he was like, I gotta employ the law, So my dad, being a man of discipline and persistence, goes to the police station virtually every day for 6 to 7 weeks because one can only glean based on that anecdote that's how often you have to go to the police to get them to do something for you. So he
Mm.
went to the police regularly, yo, I'm getting harassed, I'm getting stalked, I'm getting harassed, I'm getting stalked. You know, it's a bit of a rigmarole, a roundabout. He's got to do hella shit just to get
Mhm.
somebody to notice. Finally, they're like, okay, well, this counts as, you can probably get a PPO for this, you know? So basically the cops eventually create a file and a report, and we can take said report and press charges. So
Mhm.
we did that. Now I want to talk about, there were 2 trials. One was mine and one was my dad's. My dad's was first. So at said trial, Marcus, we'll deal with that. We can
Yeah.
deal with that, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
My stalker, I don't feel like that matters, honestly, because it's not specific. There are a million of them. And I honestly, I want to humanize them a little bit. I do want to humanize them. We could talk about the nature of that, but regardless, at this said event, he comes with his lawyer, and my dad has to present his case of why he needs a PPO. And he says, this man has been calling me, leaving these type of messages. My dad has saved the messages. He plays the messages. The messages go along the lines of, hey, Sam, I just want to let you know that your heroin dealing, child sex trafficking son is out there terrorizing youth, and I'm going to make sure you pay for it. I'm going to make sure that you get deported. I know where you're from. I know you're from Africa, and I'll get you sent back there. They're going to be protests in front of your lawn. I've got the FBI working on it. I've got the CIA working on it. I have countless amounts of evidence. You are going down. Your son is going down. How could you consider yourself a yoga instructor and a teacher of
Oh,
spiritual practices when you allow your son to run around the world terrorizing underage girls and dispensing drug, getting them hooked on drugs, et
that was
cetera, et
like a
cetera.
really good Liam Neeson. It was like giving
I
that's
mean, I
I'm
know,
sorry.
but that's
No,
not, he
that's
gets into his
scary.
grizzled Batman voice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, hey there, Sam.
that's
A little Can you have, it's,
oh.
yeah. So anyway,
Ugh.
so
Ew.
anyway,
What
so
did the kids
anyway,
say? That gives me the ick. Like,
yes, big
yikes.
ick vibes.
Yikes. Yikes.
Sick
Okay.
without the S.
So your
So
dad plays these in court for the judge. Like,
the
this is
judge goes, well, sir, where's the evidence? And his lawyer stands up, and this is on court record. I'm not paraphrasing. I am not in any way abridging. This is the sentence verbatim. I can
okay.
answer that, Your Honor. The lawyer stands up. I can answer that, Your Honor. And the judge says, oh, please do. And the lawyer goes, there isn't any. My client was just upset.
Oh. For 8 years.
For
You were just
8 years,
upset.
I was just upset. Okay, so the judge is like, yo, this is ridiculous. Permanent protection order granted. Now, again, I want to give you some context more. The lawyer beforehand goes, yo, to my dad. I'm sure he didn't start with yo. Please don't follow through with this. I promise he won't do it again. My dad says, what? I'm going through it. So it goes through, right? Then my trial date comes. He just doesn't even show up. Mine is granted too. So now we both have permanent protection orders. We're thinking this is the end of this.
Yeah. When was that? Excuse me. When was that?
Definitely peak pandemic era, 2020, 2021. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Okay.
In the throes of the world's most, terrifying health crisis, short of actual anti-blackness, which superseded that pandemic in sheer white hot, this is the biggest problem. Just like my previous sentiments.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I had my own particular terrorizing health crisis, and it was in the form of a stalker. I addressed it. We addressed it. We thought it was addressed. He frankly disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
The first rumblings I had heard of his reappearance was, I have one of my closest collaborators in all my musical works. He's the visual captain. His name is Blake. Shout out Big Blake Jackson. You know
What
what I
up?
mean? He caught a stray.
Ah.
That's what I'm saying. Bro goes out to people he knows. I'll keep going. Okay, so in that interim time, preceding me actually stopping it, like I said, he was fairly indiscriminate. One of the people that he attacked was the Donna Baldwin Agency, who were
Oh my
representing me
gosh.
as a voice actor. And when I say attack the Donna Baldwin Agency, the Donna Baldwin Agency has many different factors. They
I'm
are different
familiar.
facilities, right?
Yeah.
Models, actors, blah, 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 voice actors. He called every different department, sent emails. You work with the sex trafficker, blah, blah. I'm going to call everybody, blah, 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 along the same lines. He's left similar messages that he left for my father. He left for every different department head of Donna Baldwin Agency, including and not limited to the actual head of the Donna Baldwin Agency,
Yeah.
indiscriminately targeting anybody he could find affiliation with me with. And again, here is the relatively humdrum conundrum of the situation, is that he didn't really come at me. He chose to attack the people around me. That was always what he was doing.
Huh.
He wasn't calling me 6 times a day. He never really attacked me direct. There was a period of time where maybe he'd leave wild comments on my Instagram, maybe he sent me, but like this targeted, persistent harassment was almost exclusively reserved for my father, which is
Wow.
really, it was baffling, you know? And so he continued to target my father while simultaneously throwing Donna Baldwin into the mix. And they were respectful because, like I said, nobody takes him seriously because his accusations come across so unhinged. They're so lacking in any veracity whatsoever that it undermines any agenda he has of causing me harm. It is just embarrassing. It's deeply humiliating. It feels bad. It hurts me. He attacks you now. So again, let me go. Now we're doing a lot of time jumping here,
I mean,
but
I
I
feel
feel
like this
like
has been a pretty linear
okay,
breakdown
good.
of what has
Okay,
gone.
good.
Yeah.
So then he, like I said, circle back to Blake. He sends a message, I believe, to Blake directly, but also to the Westward, telling the Westward that Blake works with an artist who is a child sex trafficker, a heroin dealer, and that's me, right?
Right.
And so Blake received the message and the Westward writer received the message. The Westward writer reached out to Blake and was like, hey, I heard about this. What's up? And he was like, yo, Jonas has a stalker. This is really sorry. He's like, and the Westward writer like, yeah, I figured if Jonas wants to just, reach out to me or whatever, let me. And so I did. I apologize. I'm really sorry that you're being harassed by my harasser. Just want to let you know I have a PPO against this person, blah, 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 so on and so forth. The writer was really accommodating. I was like, if there's any messages or anything you could forward me that he said, I could really use that because clearly I have to reopen the case. Clearly I have to. And I can't remember. I don't really feel like anything was forwarded to me. And I don't really believe Blake received any more harassment whatsoever after that point. Now,
Mhm.
again, more context. My ex-bandmate has also been engaged in a protracted struggle against this person.
Mhm.
And this person, this stalker, included his back and forth with my ex-bandmate, which was much more contentious because, again, due to perhaps what is wise counsel or my own natural instinct about this, I'm not really sure. I never really went back and forth with him.
Mm.
I never
Mhm.
chose to engage, partly because I too don't take him seriously. I empathize with him. I feel bad for this person. This is a person in deep, profound pain without the mechanisms or tools to deal with it in a healthy way. They
Yeah.
are suffering. I am not suffering beyond his attempt to engage in sort of transference of suffering that is ineffective. I've continued to live my life, continued to have all forms of success, continued to be very happy, continued to achieve all my goals. But this persistent nagging annoyance existed.
Yeah.
Now, I thought we had addressed it. It was done. You know what I mean? And it wasn't. He had reappeared. And I can't speak to how, vicious and intense his fight with my bandmate was, but I can only imagine, considering the nature of ex-bandmate and how he doesn't take lightly to any sort of aggression. He responds in kind.
Yeah.
Um, so to give more context again, when he mentioned assault my brother,
Mhm.
that was one of the things he said, that he wasn't talking about me. He was talking about my ex-bandmate because I
Oh.
was forwarded again. I keep having to expand the circle. But so he basically sent a bunch of messages back and forth, and my ex-bandmate like took a picture of his house geolocated on and Google Drive, just like, oh, I'm coming over to beat you up or whatever. And then obviously the stalker's like, that's where my uh apparently his brother has Crohn's disease and is a homosexual with 2 kids. I don't know why he included that information, but that was information he included to somehow, I don't know, he would antagonize my ex-bandmate, and then when my ex-bandmate would return and fire, he'd be like, how dare you attack me? Again, we can talk about how that is a common characteristic of a certain demographic, but I
Perhaps.
digress.
Perhaps. Okay.
So, long story short is, last night, for instance. So now, again, this person has started a fake Instagram page called Life Coach Awareness. And it's just a
Yeah.
small clip from our last podcast where I'm talking about the argument in favor of the necessity of violence to re-equalize or to equalize power dynamics, to rectify long-standing disenfranchisement, all sorts of valid arguments for the necessity of violence without specification, without like, oh, this is going to befall you, any of that, right?
You
So
also talked about, we also very much talked about, that was a conversation around the myopia of whiteness
yeah,
in and of itself. And we talked about how there is a choice and responsibility about how we enact violence, or if we choose violence, because of its tendency to radicalize whiteness toward and further
wherever it's
away
going,
from, yeah,
wherever it's going,
to
wherever
other
its eventual location.
to other extremes, rather,
Yeah,
right? So like if
yeah,
you already had a tendency or a predisposition toward a MAGA oriented family dynamic, and then you experience violence in an all Black space, that would lead you toward making a decision to become more radical and donning the red cap or whatever, storming the Capitol or any of those things. So that is what we said, but is not it's not unusual for the myopia of whiteness to also show up in this way, where certain words or phrases or concepts are taken out of context and then flipped and used to attack people who have a differing opinion, which is what I see as having happened here. But so
yes,
yeah,
false
so now we
claims
have this.
of
Now we
reverse
have
racism. Yeah,
now
like,
we
yeah.
have the life coaching. What's the page? Life
Life
coach
coach
awareness.
awareness or something. And
Yeah,
it's
this is lit. Go ahead.
yeah. So anyway, so it's that clip, and it basically accuses us of calling violence to all white people, which did not happen, but also of using anti-Semitic tropes, which literally we would never do
Did
because
not
we're not
happen.
anti-Semitic. But also there was literally no discussion of anything related to Judaism, whatever. But I think he mentioned that because he believed it to be triggering. He believed it would incur the wrath of whatever institutional establishment might that he can get. Because again, I keep talking about how he claims to have connections to places that could smush us like a bug, right? That like,
Yeah.
my great grandfather was the CEO of Disney. Like, did that dude even know you? Great grandfather? Like, what? You know what I mean? It doesn't even make sense. But I digress. So anyway, he more or less continued on this path of with this page of following a handful of people that follow me. And he reached out to one or my friend, this gentleman said, yo, this page just followed me. It looks like it's targeting your page. I just want to let you know. And I asked him, I said, yo, could you say XYZ, a very specific phrase, because without getting into the nitty gritty, obviously we got to go further.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that. And basically this man proceeded to say, well, yes, even though there is a judgment against me, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, the state that you live in is wrong, and there's investigations going on in my state about their hate crimes. But he also said to this man, which I find this to be very interesting, I am here about your relationship to my ex-bandmate, which is weird because this gentleman, I don't know if he follows or is friends with my ex-bandmate at all, but I do know that he follows me and he's friends with me. So it just seemed like a straw man argument. And the reason I believe he used that straw man argument is because if he said, I'm here because of your relation to Jonas Abraham, it would be in direct violation of the PPO. And
Right.
this is what I'm believing. I'm wondering if this person thinks or understands or is under the impression they're savvy and somehow skirting, violating the PPO, which they aren't. They have violated the PPO several times now, whether
Mm-hmm.
they're aware or they're not aware. And, that's pretty much the entirety of the story.
Whew.
So we can start to really unpack it, because this is one of the things that we got to talk about. It's the notion of like this person really feeling entitled to weaponize the institutions against whomever he feels or deems it right. And where does that belief come from? I myself, I don't believe black people. I don't believe non-white people believe that they can weaponize the institutions of the state against their enemies.
Yeah, I don't think that there's an inherent trust that has been established in any of these systems that would
Lead
make,
anyone. Right.
lead me to believe that that's an approach. And I think l- here's some things that I would like to say about the stray that I caught.
Yes, please do.
Okay. I appreciate, thank you for breaking that whole thing down and sharing that and also getting that off your chest. And for a minute, I don't know if you noticed, um, I lit a candle.
Yeah.
I burned something to clear. And I just want to invite us to take a breath to like let it,
Mhm.
like, just get that out.
Mhm.
Because as I understand it, you've been holding your side of this story for all 13 years. Is this,
Yeah.
you don't really talk about this?
No, not any, and I now I'm forced to. That's why we're doing this, and also tomorrow I plan on making a public announcement, a PSA of sorts, on my Instagram page. Just really coming in with it head on, and in service of anybody that I have community with there that may catch strays, because he seems to be going out and searching for my friends to engage in either forms of just really bad interactions or targeted harassment. It would be
Yeah.
unfair of me to not in any way, shape, or form attempt to intervene, to circumvent, to prevent, right?
Yeah.
But also, yes, like it's like, why am I'm deeply ashamed of it. I'm deeply humiliated. I'm embarrassed.
Mm.
If there's any pain I'm suffering, it's that. It's a sense of humiliation, which is and shame, which are profound emotions. They're not nothing to write off. I'm ashamed of this, and it hurts my
Yeah.
feelings. I'm embarrassed. I'm
Mm.
deeply embarrassed by it. And but why? Partly because, like I said, it addresses some of my quote unquote early burglary years, my
Mm.
less than stellar moments. And and we talked about this, and this is something I really want to get into, because we had a conversation, me and you, yesterday, instead of recording, because, people over products, we had to really talk about this as human beings.
Yeah. Like so I want to, let's venture into the shame
Okay.
monster.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we had to have a conversation. Here's, I'm I'm grateful. I'm gonna start with gratitude over dread. I'm grateful for this pit. And the reason I'm grateful for this pit is because what it did was it gave us an opportunity to be empowered, to have agency, to own our own stories and experiences, to face shame and to look it in the face and be like, wait a minute. And I think that is more powerful than any claim or a podcast review where, like, the only power that this person had was to, and like you said, like, there's obviously some pain or something else that's functioning in a part of them that is leading them toward these particular actions. But, you know if all you have is the ability to rate our podcast 1 star on Apple Podcasts and, like, make some comments on Instagram, that doesn't really outweigh the fact that our relationship, we're coming up on almost 20 years of friendship. Um, and that has much more power. So we needed to have a conversation about how do we heal in the context of us continuing to do this work of staying the course, because like you said yesterday, everything that we have to say is important. Everything that we have to say is important. I'm going to turn my phone on do not disturb.
Me too.
Um,
Me too.
everything that we have to say is
I
important.
wish I could
And
turn my dog on Do Not Disturb.
Giorgio Michael.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You
um,
know what I mean?
so us having these conversations is really a testament to the work of healing is possible. there was healing that needed
Yeah.
to take place because there was harm that was caused. And we also had to heal and go back to the some of the earliest stages of our friendship during that time of like, well, what was going on back in 2010, 11? Like what, and how did we get here today? And what took place? Because when I caught the stray, and you gave me the first story of context, I had a part that also experienced some harm around that time in an interrelational way and was like, oh, so of course now I'm being targeted by the stalker based off some shit Jonas and them did, back in the days where they was like running through the streets, black hearts for life, being like black punk hip hop rock stars. And, now I'm towing the line for that, which I didn't know I was gonna feel that way until I felt it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
wasn't able to move past it until I articulated it and we talked about it and talked through it.
Yeah.
So
So that's what
and
I wanted to talk about. Yeah,
yeah,
it's just
that's
that,
that's
like,
where we are with the shame piece and how we got here, but, I think
well,
shame is one of those things, um, guilt and shame are the 2 lowest vibrational frequencies of emotions that one could feel. They're all the way at the bottom, right? Um, Guilt
right there.
is in the root. Guilt is I did bad. Shame
Mhm.
is I am bad.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's interesting because shame is one of those things that can be projected onto you and like communicated to you without words, without I mean, like a look, a glance, a disposition, an energetic like shift can
Mhm.
send some shame. So to the part of you that is holding shame, I want to just say like vulnerability is not always the next safest space. So like
Right, right.
to
Mm.
whatever degree you feel comfortable unpacking what this brought up for you, I'm happy to walk with you through
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I mean, that's what like, we had a great conversation yesterday, but I think that basically, if there's anything that I carry shame about is that, like, I often would use the language, "I emerged from my dark wilderness years unscathed,"
Hmm.
and that's just not true, because there are these protracted, prolonged streaks of harm that affected the people closest to me. My father,
Yeah.
like, literally, terrorized by this man. And because I was still somewhat existing in this wilderness, I was somewhat oblivious or just let it go. I didn't nip it in the I wasn't stricken with the same fervor to address it, to shut it down. I was just still on my debauchery, my hedonism, you know what I mean? It's just like, sorry, you got to deal with that. And so that speaks to how, like, I was not hyper aware, as I try to be, of how my behaviors affect the people around me. I didn't A lot of the values that we talk about in this show, with community and with socialism and prioritizing the people and thinking about how we affect the people around us and making that right.
Mhm.
I didn't live that way.
Yeah.
And so I was, and one of the things that we fail to understand a lot of times is when we harm ourselves, we harm the people around us. So you think I'm only harming me. I'm only engaging in these poisonous, toxic behaviors to me.
Mhm.
But because there are people who love you, but because there are people who care about you, but because there are people who have the heartstrings connected to you,
Mhm.
you cannot just hurt yourself.
Yeah.
So I think the shame and the humiliation, the embarrassment I feel is like, this is the damage I've wrought. This is what I've done. And it does seem terminal. This man is determined. He is not in any way warded off by the system. Clearly, he feels somehow insulated from the legal ramifications of this. And one can only surmise, after somebody engages in a behavior for 10 plus years, that they're going to do it for life.
Eh,
So maybe, right. But I mean, certainly I live in this place where it's like, yo, is this gonna be forever? Like yesterday when you call me, because, like, I don't think it's any hyperbole to say that our relationship to me, just like, I feel you feel the same way, is so sacred, is so
yeah.
deep, is so profound, that it really drew into stark contrast what harm meant when it harmed you.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't see it as much with my dad, but clearly not. Not that I didn't see as much when it was me. Not that I didn't see it as much when it was Donna Baldwin Agency, when it was Yoga Energy, when it was Blake, when it was, I don't know what it is, but like yesterday when you called me, I was like, oh my God. I'm many years removed from that era. I and
Mhm.
I and I, and we talked about this, and this is something really interesting you said, is that have you made amends? And I gotta be honest, without getting in again to the nitty-gritty, my debauched years were rooted in addictive behaviors with illicit substances that
Mhm.
I rectified without a 12-step program. Amends was never in my protocol. I didn't feel the
Mhm.
need to go around apologizing individually for my transgressions. I thought the greatest apology was to change my behavior. So I
Right.
really, you said, did you make amends? And I was like, I don't do amends. That's like more or less what I said. And
Right.
I was like, oh, but also I just want to make it clear. Ain't no amends with bro. Ain't no like, let me come to the table and just apologize, anything like
Yeah.
that. Nobody's recommending I don't directly deal with this individual. It's way past that. And this isn't even about that. This is about him needing to stop his hurt. I
Yeah.
If I apologized to him, he would still be hurting. It wouldn't be like, oh, wound closed. The ex-wife is gone. The ex-wife is remarried, new people. You know what I mean? He is still angry about the marriage, frankly. I know he is. It eats him. Frankly, he is hurt. And for the record, I would like to say that I am sorry. I'm sorry that the behaviors that I engaged in then, in any way, shape, or form, caused a dissolution to his marriage. I would like to publicly say that because he listens. He listened to our entire episode. He took a
Mhm.
snapshot, he posted. So he's going to be listening today.
Mhm.
And I just want to say to him, I do apologize. I am sorry. It's unfortunate. Now, the accusations that you have made about me are flatly untrue. But again, without getting into the nitty gritty, some of the transgressions you believe I've committed against you, arguably, are they valid? Yes, arguably they are. And for that, I take accountability. I apologize. But it does not give you license to harm people who have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
My father had nothing to do with it. Ebony has nothing to do with it. Donna Baldwin Agency, Yoga Energy, Blake Jackson, you name it, they have nothing to do with it. So it is really, really past the point of just between me and you. Your hurt has allowed you to believe that you could indiscriminately harm whoever you saw had a heartstring to me, whoever had a connection to me. This is one of the great people I listen to all the time, and I really want to take a moment. His name is Diallo Kenyatta. He's perhaps in this space of punditry. And he talks about this dichotomy of the victim and the vector.
Mhm.
We are all, or can be, or are legitimately victimized. Being victimized leads a lot of people to become a vector, which is to say a transmitter of the harm.
Mhm.
And no victim paradigm gives you license to become a vector.
Yeah.
Deal with your shit.
Hurt people unless you heal
Hurt
that
people.
hurt.
And it doesn't give you license though. Like we say, hurt people as if it's some sort of license.
No, it's not.
The hurt people are wrong.
Yeah. You
They
gotta
are wrong.
heal you
And they
gotta heal
live
the
with
hurt
that.
so you don't hurt people. So that's why we heal, right? Like, that's why we take accountability for our wounds. That's why we don't go, if you understand that you have all these swords sticking out of you, that means that you don't go rushing in for a hug because you're gonna cut somebody. You know what I mean? Like,
That's a great analogy. Yeah,
that's
you know what I
the
mean? And you
thing.
wrong for that. You wrong for
You're
that.
wrong for that. Yeah.
You wrong for that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, but again, if we start to do some political analysis and we extrapolate further, there's a couple different industrial complexes at play here that enable this malfeasance, and they are particularly a nexus of evil. One of them
Wow.
is his class status. He believes, for whatever reason, and I do believe his class status, his wealth status, where he lies in whatever socioeconomic hierarchy gives him license to do this. I believe that. B, I believe, frankly, he must be monitored 24 hours a day. The mental health, no, I'm not joking. Like the mental
Okay,
health
I'm sorry.
industry,
I
the
didn't. I'm
business.
not supposed to laugh. He
No,
said,
no, I mean, he does. It's like we're talking about somebody who functionally has what amounts to a built-in traumatic brain injury. And what I say by that is like not to, but what I'm saying is that he can easily say, "I'm not responsible for my actions." Okay, if you're not responsible for your actions, the parents who enable you to live whatever semblance of independence are.
yeah, okay.
Somebody is. There's not just any sort of world where, like, oh, no one is responsible. Someone is responsible, and if he can literally claim or theoretically claim that it's not him, who is it? So there's that's one of the nexus. And then I think finally the third one is legally. What is my recompense? Because the nature of the laws, the PPO, means that I believe he's skirting what he considers to be violations by attacking indirectly, indiscriminately, random people because it's not indirect violence. So there isn't a law that I know of that prevents this type of targeted harassment that I
Well,
can speak to.
so in the comments, in some of the claims that were made, um,
Mhm.
is that I have a podcast where we are calling on violence against all white people and saying a whole bunch of anti-Semitic tropes. Um, this person says he's going to take his time and utilize all of his followers and all of his connections in the media to make sure that we are punished to the fullest extent legally possible. Um, so this was the direct claim, right? And then
Right.
and then goes on in
Those are
another
his
post,
words.
his words. In
Mhm.
another claim goes on to say that we are the equivalent of bigoted backyard bullies who are making
Right.
jokes about anti-Semitism, and that the coaching industry is a farce full of uncertified professionals and so on and so forth. So let me circle around to this.
Mhm.
First of all, I think that the coaching industry, as an unregulated industry where anyone can call themselves a coach, is another ill reputed entity or institution, right? I think that when you are dealing in behavioral sciences and working with individuals, you absolutely do need certification and oversight. Um, as a result of which, I have several. I hold several certifications. Because as it relates to race, class, and gender, as a Black woman, I do not have the benefit or the privilege of making such an endeavor to call myself a certified or a life alchemy coach without holding certifications that would validate or authenticate me as being able to go out into the world and do this work. I'm not beat for the fact that a cisgendered heterosexual white male person disagrees with my political and personal views or my approach or tactics or methods as a coach. There is no legal ramification to me speaking freely on my podcast about my lived experiences at the Beyonce concert where I was assaulted by white women, speaking about the logistics of what happened. There is no legal ramification for me having an opinion that is backed by certifications and knowledge and experience, and sharing that in and of itself tends to make the skin of white men crawl by just that's just my existence. Welcome to it, sir. I also think about life coaching that when you find a good one, I believe that there's a coach for everyone, and when you find a good one, it literally can change the world. And so the reason that I do this work is because I looked at the industry and saw that it was completely full of white men and white women who are a certain age demographic. There in the certification channels of the life coaching industry, there is no demographic category for race of certified life coaches because there are so few of us,
They don't even
right?
measure.
They don't
Really.
even measure it,
Mm.
right? So the system that I saw when I experienced life coaching as an industry, I was like, oh, if I take these tools and learn these methods and bring it back to Black and brown people, I can then incorporate and weave this into our own ancestral ways of knowing and being and the lived experience and realities of who we are. And I can affect change and support people who are out there being the only one in their fields. Now, I'm not saying that as a justification for old boy who is in his feelings and, internet thugging, but I'm saying that because I feel like it's important to state as a whole, like, I'm not beat for the fact that a white man is mad because I have a podcast saying whatever the fuck I want to say, talking to my friend of 20 years about the things that we believe to be important, that are direct and immediate harms that are being presented to Black and brown people on a global level. And so, again, healing is possible, magic is real, and love is the answer. Fuck around and find out, and understand that, like, I'm divinely protected on a whole lot of levels. So I'm not really concerned about that personally. I think it's just interesting that without any kind of um proof, analysis, consideration of my humanity, that this person sees fit to attack me professionally by making these claims, and to go and to use the internet, a place of ill repute, to do that in such a way because he has, like he said, is going to take his time and resources. Why don't you take your time and resources to do something useful? Why don't you take your time and resources to, like, I don't know, pay a scholarship, fund somebody to do research or have a project, help somebody learn, help somebody heal, do something that would be a contributive factor to society. Maybe you help and support and actually create, pass legislation or create an entity that would support rescuing women and children for who are actively being trafficked in the sex trade right now. Perhaps you do something to fund an addiction recovery household. Maybe you need to get into a 12-step program. There's just so much other shit you could be doing with your time besides being on social media, fucking up my gig because you don't want me to have a 5-star rating on a podcast that I started. Like, get bent, bro. Like, find something else to do with your time. Because here's the thing, while I am love and light, while I am a certified professional, while I am an organic intellectual and a fly ass auntie and all those other things, I'll also cuss you the fuck out.
Yeah.
And both things can be true at the same time. I don't have to perform professionalism for the patriarchy because a white man wants me to justify my behavior based off what he does or does not like because his wife left him 10 years ago. Ain't nobody got time for
Woo!
that.
Woo!
So you don't know
Woo!
me. But I
Yes.
tell you what, but I also say, in the same breath, because I can do both, I also wish you love and light. I'm also grateful to you for listening. You are probably one of the only people who listened. The fact that we're taking out this hour of this time of this podcast to address you in particular is because of the fact that it invited a really deep level of healing that had to come on a one-on-one level between me and my brother that didn't have anything to do with you. And it also is functioning as a distraction, as Toni Morrison would say. It is a distraction to the movement because we have a whole show planned about reparations and about the Palestinian conflict and occupation, and moving on to talk about socialism and talk about self-actualization as a method of liberation, and all of the things that we will continue to do. One monkey don't stop no show. But we did need to come here to say that just as soon as we started, here come the attacks. Here come the attacks as a distraction from the actual work of what we're doing. Because before you made that Instagram page, and I'm speaking directly to you, you listened to a lot of the episode. You
Two and a
listened.
half hours. You
It
listened
was
to the
a
whole
two and
thing.
a half hour long episode. You had to listen and search deep and wait for us to say something that you could tease out as potentially problematic. And even then, you lied about it and took it out of context in order to support your claims to say something wild. So you went out of your way to be nefarious and obstinate because you needed to prove a point of being harmful. So you enacted harm against a stranger who you know nothing about me, and then reached out to a colleague of mine to disrupt her work
And
and
I want to
distract her from
apologize
doing
to her
her work.
too. I would like to apologize to your colleague personally too. I want to say that too. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to remember to say that because I'm really sorry. But go on.
Yeah. So, like, all well and good. I hope you got what you came for. I really do. I hope you got what you came for. And just make sure that when you leave, you go. I don't know that you I mean, I'm not really sure what you want more than what we've given you. And I feel like that's the most generous offering that I can give you, is to look at the timestamp right now and say that we've been talking about this for an hour. That's not so much about you, but it's for us to use our platform to give Jonas the opportunity to unburden himself from the thing that he has been holding, which is the shame of this harassment that has been reverberating to the people who have loved him this whole time that you have been attacking him and his character. So, in
Yeah.
defense
Yeah.
of you, and to speak directly to the pit that has been the subject of this discourse today, like, fuck that dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, like, let it go. Like, what does it look like for you to let it go and to release yourself from the shame of his incessant harassment? Because, like you said, everybody who sees it knows, like, it doesn't take a whole day to like decipher it and be like, oh, this is weird. Like, this is strange.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel like it's in alignment. Like, the people who know me and in the coaching industry know me. My
Yeah.
reputation precedes me. So your claim that I'm doing something, harmful or illegal or whatever that is, causing people to need to think twice about coaches, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, bro. But
You're right. Like, that's what Ebony said.
you're
You're
right.
right. I mean, you are right. The life coaching industry is full of frauds and
Absolutely. But so
chicanery
is
and
so
shenanigans.
is so is every single government. Let me tell you something. The imposters are not in the rooms. The imposters are out here pretending to have been telling you a story about what they saw when they were in the imaginary room, as they imagined it. They're out here living in their delusions. So, like, yeah, there are frauds and phonies and scammers in every place. Like, that's fine. I don't, and you get to call me one. You have the freedom of
Yeah.
speech to call me one. You can get on and Twitter finger your way through whatever, but it's not going to stop my work. It's not going to stop or impede our relationship. It's not going to change my mind. You haven't broached you've just been derogatory and like and trollish, and that's got to be sad for you. Like, I want better for you.
Right.
And I want
Right.
better for you. I want you to use your class access and your resources and the hyper functioning of your mind to do something that is great and useful and beautiful. Like, make something beautiful, make art, make
And to
love,
that
do
point,
something better.
that's what would help you.
Yeah,
That's what
that's
would
how you
help
get
you stop
free.
hurting. That's how you get free. That, if seriously, again, speaking to this individual directly, if you want to stop hurting, start helping
Mhm.
people. Use all the power that you claim you have, that you intend to use in this sort of vindictive fashion, and turn that around and use it in a valiant fashion. Use it to help the people that you claim to be protecting. But secondly, I also want to speak to that notion that it's like, you're not capable of harming my reputation, of harming my work, of harming my relationships, of harming my, because I live in the light. The
Yeah.
way I conduct
Mm.
myself is in my actions and my behaviors, they speak louder than he ever could. So people see your words that have very little, if any, credence, and see my actions and see my behaviors and see how I live and see my work and go, I prioritize this over this because this I know, see, hear, feel, and touch. This is just air, So, like, it really has to occur to this person. And this is where we start to talk about capacity, capability. If he's not incapable of actually extrapolating that, he has been wasting his time,
Yeah.
wasting his resources. In the process, he is now 2 permanent protection orders. And now the legal ramifications of his continued harassment are going to visit him again. And his life is only going to suffer further. And this is a vicious cycle of which he is the only person capable of unspooling.
Yeah.
I am not. He is not. I mean, I am not. You are not. Nobody. And that's the thing about it, is like, he must hear this very clearly. The second that you decided initially, one person, me, or perhaps my ex-bandmate, was the cause of his harm, and the way that you were going to deal with that is to attack innocent people next to me, he ceased to be any kind of victim and eventually became a victimizer. You are a victimizer. You are hurting people. You are causing more harm to compound onto the harm that you have suffered. And I acknowledge you have suffered. I acknowledge that you have legitimate grievances, legitimate hurt, valid pain. I'm not disagreeing that
It's
what I'm
also not
telling you is
dissimilar
that.
from any other human being walking the earth. It doesn't set you apart or make you special or give your pain priority over anybody
Right.
else's. That's just not
Yeah.
how it
Yeah. Seriously.
works. Like
No.
it doesn't work that way. So I don't want to continue to like, I don't know. There's a part of me that is like, I'm like, this is, when people talk about, oh, when you have a stalker, you don't engage because that, you know, feeds them and you should use legal resources. We talked about how Black and brown folks do not have a trust in institutions in carceral state at all to be our protectors in environments like this. So what I do know is like I think what our agency in this situation is to speak directly to the mountain, the pit, to speak directly to him, um in saying like, we see you, we see you.
Yeah.
Like, I see you. I get it. Like,
Yeah.
when one of the things that we ended up talking about yesterday was like the work of, and this I'm going to pull back and kind of pivot a little bit
Mhm.
from him in particular and talk about a thing that came up for me is like the work of Black women in community as it relates to how we cultivate community through filial or uh intimate and platonic relationships, platonic yet intimate non-sexual relationships or platonic relationships, filial bonds, right? With
Mhm.
between men and women um in the Black community. How we do that. I feel like for my whole adult life, when I grew up, I had a lot of uncles, I have brother, big cousins. I grew up having an understanding of men as a protective entity, a resource, understanding that there are definitely like being able to read energy of men and understanding which ones were safe and unsafe, um, playing with the boys. I was very aware of that in my childhood. Thankfully, because I had so many positive examples of male role models and male figures in my life who did not cause me harm, who were my protectors. I realized that in that same group of men, just because I was safe, some of my other cousins and relatives and friends were not safe around some of those same men, right? So, however, as I became older, I started to look at, if I'm going to be in the world, I can't be in the world and be like a consumable product for men, right? And I saw all the ways that society wanted to pressure me into being consumable, right?
Mhm.
To
Mhm.
and the fear that was being instilled in me, or the guidance from my maternal figures, was you don't want to end up out here lost and turned out. You don't want to end up in the streets. The streets was the worst place that you could be. You don't want to have your reputation tarnished sexually. They're gonna call you a hoe no matter what you do. If you do anything with a boy, anything, you gonna be a hoe. So don't do nothing, because you can't be no hoe. Because that's the worst thing that could happen, right? Is to have your
Mhm.
reputation tarnished because somebody's ashy ass son done said something about you being out in the world, right? But I was
Mhm.
constantly seeking the support and stability, like, but these are my homeboys. These are my friends. I'm not having to, this is my homie. You know what I mean? These are you
Mhm.
I felt like women and men could and should be friends. It has been perhaps one of the most challenging relational lanes for me to maintain in my life, to honor, um, to cultivate, and to be in right relationship with men has been extremely difficult. One of the places where I had some acute difficulty was in my relationship with our friendship, because you completely unbeknownst to like you were like entirely, I don't know, unaware, like you were just never on that shit, right? Like Jonas has um a vibe where he's not like a mixy, you know what I mean? He's not like the dude who's out here chasing ass, you know what I mean? Like I'm not, without revealing too much about your personal life, like he's just Jonas is not for the streets.
I'm not. No, I'm
Right?
not.
It's not for the streets, nor
No.
have you ever been.
Right.
So I think I put a lot of pressure on our relationship in assuming a certain level of safety with you and in our friendship. And I think that this scenario, this situation, and I think that had a lot to do with why I said we're going to do the podcast. I've been kicking the can down the road of doing a podcast for a long time, partly because some of the
Mhm.
feedback that Homeboy levied against us, because yeah, the coaching industry is a shit show. And like, I don't
Mhm.
necessarily want to speak as an authority on a subject that I'm not sure that I'm completely committed to, and also don't want to spend all my time arguing with invisible people on the internet. But I felt safer doing that because we get to do this thing together. And that felt made the success and the legitimacy of the project feel more possible. But back in the day of being in Denver, of watching the way, like, so back in the day we used to call Denver Boys Town. Me and the homegirls, we
Mhm.
called it Boys Town. Now the children call it Menver because of the dynamic of men versus women. But at the same time that you were making music and doing shows, I too was very much in the field as a poet, spoken word artist, MC, doing events. I was the liquor rep. I was a bit of a girl about town, so to speak, at this period. I watched for a very long time women in Denver, in our community in particular, go to great lengths to uphold, to protect, to provide for men in the music and entertainment industry to, to be successful, to be great. And to the extent of whether or not they were raising and having your babies, paying your rent, buying studio time, you know, keeping the groupies off you in the DJ booths, if they were providing the couch that you and your homeboy slept on, if they were letting you use their car to get someplace while they was at work, if they were promoting and producing the shows, writing the articles about you, saying the prayers for you, casting the spells to protect. I'm talking about like literally covering
All that.
on all
All that.
different sides and angles. And there was still this element of like not really being accepted, not really being protected, still having that same element of you might be gobbled up by this industry, by this man, and it always coming down to sexual desirability. It all coming down
Mm.
to who you fucking, who you loving, who you want to be like, listen, who you want to be hugging, like
Yeah.
dipping
Yeah.
on your, yeah, that was what I think corroded so many potential relationships. Um, a former homegirl of mine used to say, if you fuck one rapper, you fucked all the rappers. So you have to be, you either can't fuck no rap, can't fuck no rappers. But it's like, oh, everybody's a rapper. And here I am thinking about what are ways that, how do I position myself? And I say all that to say this, it had a great deal to do with how I understood myself in the formative years of my 20s. Um, the choices that I made in like how I dressed, who I dated, what I wore, what relationships I was in, and all of it really boiled down to looking for safety. And that is a necessity. The safety is required in order for you to self actualize. And I think that there are women, and especially femmes, non binary folks as well, I will say, like, who didn't really have many spaces where they could experience safety and still be in the company of men. And so I wonder where we are
Mm.
limited in our ability to self-actualize if we can't have those really difficult conversations where I was able to say yesterday, like, yo, you made choices while you were in your debaucherous era that made me feel inherently unsafe. And I was hurt by that. And that had a lot to do
And that
with
was
why I
like,
wasn't
yeah.
around you. So I said all that to give some context for like the personal trajectory of our relationship and how important it is to me. And also to say that like it is big. I know that you didn't do 12 steps, but it is big for you to just acknowledge that you are worthy enough to have been loved even when you were in your least desirable iteration of yourself. And you
Yeah.
were loved then. And I think to some degree, I mean, not even to some degree, to a full out extent, that love is what sustained you and was able to carry you
Mhm.
through virtually unscathed.
Virtually. Virtually.
I mean,
Yeah.
you sitting here whole
Well,
as hell right now with sunflowers in the
yeah.
background looking like, you know what I mean,
Looking
looking
good,
great with
looking
your
good,
beard is
looking good,
shaped up,
looking
you know
great.
what I mean?
You know
So
what I'm
like
saying? You know what I'm saying?
black
Yeah.
women, we just we I loved y'all through it and it was all because and it I think it allowed me to learn how to love myself and to accept myself without the value add of whether or not I am desired by somebody's son,
Boys
by
Town.
Boys Town, or whether or not I'm like a viable addition to Boys Town. You know what I mean? Like it's like you can sit across from somebody, have the most amazing conversations, they get in the studio and say some wild shit on a track and you be like, wow. Or, you know what I mean? Like you talk to me in the daytime, we go to lunch, have coffee or something like that. I see you out at the club, you walk past me like, you know what I mean? My name is Stanley. Or just any number of different scenarios or iterations of like how
Well, okay,
the
so
lack
that's
of
what I wanted
safety
to talk
exists.
about. Is like one of the things I didn't see was, and if we're not if we want to get real specific here, is that like, and I said this before, all art is propaganda.
Yeah.
All art is propaganda. So sometimes the ways that I would make you feel unsafe, unbeknownst to myself, is that whatever cogent ideology that I was presenting, I didn't fully understand the ramifications of, and I would contradict. So perhaps I would make something like Black is Beautiful, which was one of the projects, and really lionize Black women. And then there would be artwork that like had these like lurid, sort of trashy pictures of non-Black women and sexualizing them. And it was this weird sort of dichotomy of trying to lionize Black women and objectifying non-Black women that was a disservice ultimately to Black women. That was ultimately
I
insulting
mean,
to
I think it
Black
was a
women. And
disservice to all
aesthetically,
women.
no, yeah, sure, sure, of course. I mean, I was gonna say that, but like, I was only thinking of Black women. I'm sorry.
Right.
And in that said, I was only, and like, and that's what I'm saying is that it's like, so you start to realize in this real way after the fact, and and something that we talked about yesterday is like, I did come to these conclusions myself. Like, oh my God, why am I ever putting a non-Black woman on the cover? Why am I ever why am I ever doing this, talking about this? But I said to you yesterday, and this is something I would have appreciated being told, yo, you doing this on the, okay, like, again, to give more context, there's an album for Black Hearts that is called Church, and Ebony's on the cover. And Ebony's on the cover looking, resplendent in this church down the block, and looking like God. You know what I mean? And that was and so, and then the next record had, you know, a white woman with taped nipples. And it's like one is sort of
And
somewhat insulting and denigrating to the previous one, and vice
With
versa.
so I'm gonna go a little bit further on this experience here because the church
Mhm.
album, the church project, Jonas was like, "I need you. Do you think you could paint a black heart on your lips? Do you think you could do that?" And
It's a sick
I was
picture.
like,
It's a sick
I
ass
was like, I think
picture.
I could do that. Sure, like let's go. So he's like, we're gonna go to this church on Colfax and take pictures for the album. I was like, all right, bet. I dress in all black. I blow my afro out, like paint the black heart on my lips. And then I realized like we're going to like a cathedral,
Church.
a cathedral. cathedral, like one of the oldest churches in Denver or something like that is on Colfax.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
like in the middle of the day,
During prayer
there's like
service
a
or
mass
whatever they were
happening.
doing.
I'm not even sure because I'm not Catholic, so I don't know, but I know that there were people in the sanctuary. Like literally at one point, the photographer, I don't know if it was you or the photographer, was like, "So do you want to stand like in the baptism pool?" And I was like, "Are y'all crazy?" Like I'm not. I'm like I'm a preacher. My grandfather and grandmother were pastor and evangelist. I grew up Southern Baptist. I am not that now. However, I got sense in home training, and every part of my body was just like, "You are. This is a sin. I don't know to who, but you should not be doing this." And I was like, "Okay, we'll just get the picture." And we literally like snuck into a church, made a little bit enough noise to be noticed, but like nobody came to get us or stop us. We got some looks. There were definitely some people who were like, "What? We are not supposed to be in this church," standing in the pew. The photograph is taken. I'm literally standing in the center aisle of the church, midway down through the pews, with the whole um pulpit
It is the sickest picture. It is
behind
so
me,
sick.
like, and we like take a picture. Okay, cool. What else did we come up with for that? Oh, the black woman is God. Let's do like let's feign a sacrificial performance
Oh,
for this
mm.
show. Oh, Black Hearts has a show. Ebony, could you come and like, be the priestess of this ceremony? We're gonna have ritual before we do the and so, listen, the bruja in me said, sure, I got you, because I would hate for somebody else to be up there doing it, fucking around, making mistakes or whatever. So I will bring that magic to this event. Y'all, there were no black people there. Like when I tell you there were maybe two other black people there, one who were homegirls, I think, and not very many of the homegirls actually came because, girl, what? So
It was pretty
it was
weird.
very weird, but I did it. This is why I call Jonas my creative accomplice and co-conspirator, because I be with the shits. I did not say no, right? Again, but this goes back
No.
to the safety element of it. So
Mhm.
I'm I'm like down with the band, right? I feel like I'm part of the crew. I was not part of the crew, y'all. I wasn't part of the crew. No, I
What?
wasn't. Next thing
Say
you know,
what you
okay,
mean?
so then, but this is what it felt like, because the next project that got released, they get signed, they're going to LA. It's this, everybody is super excited, like hella happy for y'all. And you drop the next project. And it is all
Mhm.
of this gritty, lurid, like just
Trashy.
trippy, like this faceless white woman who is nude except for having two X's electrical taped across her nipples, and her vagina is covered with electrical tape. Her
Yeah.
crotch is covered with electrical tape, and she's faceless because her hair is like all over her face. So this is like the epitome of objectification. That's the
Mm.
contrast of the project. And so I was like, oh, well, fuck me. Like, that's not you. What do you mean I wasn't part? Like, there was just this
That
departure.
you took that as the rejection. You took that as a rejection of
Jonas, it
sorts.
is the most literal and visual opposition, a literal like yin and yang, like and not in a balanced, cohesive way. It was like polar opposite.
It was not beautiful
It
like a yin and
it
yang.
was not. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And then I, real talk, like, didn't really hear from y'all no more for years. I mean, I realized that a number of things
Mm.
happened, but like shortly after that, I relocated. I left Denver, moved to Albuquerque. Like, I think we maybe had like one conversation from the road, like when my band's EP dropped, and that was it. I literally didn't speak to you again until you came back from LA. So I was heartbroken.
Hmm. Well, firstly, I want to apologize
You out here on the
because,
apology tour today, bro.
well, yeah, I know this is, yeah. I'm on an apology tour. But I mean, I see it, I hear it, and you got to acknowledge it. I got to hold that. You know what I mean? I can't really be like, oh, you wrong for this for that. No, I hear it. I understand the transgression. I apologize for it, and I just can only say my behavior for the most recent, past, present project is a writing of that ship and will continue to be. But also, I think what I was saying was just that I was oblivious.
Yeah.
I didn't see them as incongruent. I didn't see them as contradictions that somehow negated each other or somehow really cast a sense of just disappointment or hurt or any. I was completely unawares of that, and I think one of the things that about this situation with the stalker is that it is reflective of, and I think you said this yesterday, of course, that bullshit you was on back then would come back to bite you
Mhm.
in the ass or people you love in the ass. And that's really what we're talking about
Yeah.
here is it's like I did not connect the dots. And even really until yesterday did I connect the dots of the hell I had wrought in terms of like it's still visiting me. It's still coming to me. And so it's like the accountability I have to take is in this debauched era. And again, I said this before, you cannot pretend like self-harm is not non-self-harm. It's harm to your community.
Absolutely.
Self-harm is community harm. So when I was engaging in these prolonged forms of self-harm, I was engaging in prolonged forms of harming the people who love me the most. People like you,
Mhm.
people like my dad, people like, even to this day, there are a lot of people like Morgan, for instance, on that Faven album, you hear her talk about how like when she knew or she heard, and it's like for that same reason, people are like, oh, I can't really fuck with him like that, no more. But that hurts. That's another form of, you know what I mean? It's like you're forcing me to not fuck with you. And that hurts me because I can't fuck with you in this
Yeah.
state. You know what I mean? So it's like one of the great things about this circumstance, because again, I always say, I am somebody who looks for the opportunity in problems, in crisis. I've said then, I say it now, we are going to take the energy that was given to us by the pit,
Mhm.
internalize it, and reverberate it outward. We will make a mountain out of the
Yeah,
pit.
for sure.
We will make some beauty. So like
I'm
we
playing we
we
gonna
really had
plan
this
another
healing
peach tree,
conversation.
baby.
You know what I mean? We're gonna play for Peachtree. Ain't no scared of no pit. One pit don't stop no
At all.
Peachtree. Nah, but you know what I mean? So that was the thing about it. It's like we really got to talk in depth about the ways my behaviors harmed you then, and frankly, how they're harming you now. And just being able to hear that and understand that it was painful. And this is something that I think we want to talk about. I believe there's such thing as good pain. I don't believe there's such thing as good harm.
Yeah.
And this was a good pain. Like, so we had this conversation. We really got to talk about the political. Like, again, there's a lot of things to extrapolate: the sociological, the gendered, the sexual, uh, whatever psychology elements of it, the political aspects, all of this stuff. That, like, at that point, and I'm not going to attribute that to my age. I'm not going to attribute that to anything other than my own myopia
Mm.
at that point.
Yeah.
This real sort of narrow scope about what success meant, what my own aspirations were, which, like, again, I think we touched on this a little bit. I never considered I'm doing my art for the good or addressing of a political struggle affecting my people. I really didn't. I was like, I'm trying to blow up. I'm trying to get this bag. I'm trying to, and to be fair, it wasn't because that was my internal. It was because that was the external pressures telling me that's the validation we need to see to for us to grant you what you should be able to grant
Mm.
yourself. And then my own dark period, my own wilderness period after the dissolution of Black Hearts, before the reemergence into my solo career now, it was this really long lost thing of like, why am I doing this? Why do I do music? What is the point of art? And having lost that, it really took out the battery in my back, because there was this sense before of like this careerist, opportunist ambition. Without that, what is the point? And it was only, like I said, in these long and winding conversations with Morgan and just sort of this healing process in myself, addressing my own shortcomings, really nipping in the bud the debauched era and all that other stuff, that I start to realize I got to use every literal ability I have in me to help Black people,
Mm.
period. And now all of a sudden, everything has meaning. But also, you start to realize when you aren't doing that, when you don't have a sense of purpose that is greater than oneself, that is not self-serving, that's not in service of ultimately good, how can you do anything but some form of either direct or indirect harm?
Mm.
Which is to say, intention is everything, So there's this real serious element of like the intention that I put into now. It's not perhaps buoyed by the fact that I have something to rectify or something I have to address, but just that I'm really in alignment with it. I really do believe, I really see the value in everything I do, whether it be each one, teach one, reach one situation, or en masse.
Mhm.
If it be a million people or one people, every action I genuinely believe I really try to put towards the singular goal of helping Black
Yeah.
people as I see it, as I believe I can, as I should. So, when you get to talking about this sort of situation, it's like when I was indiscriminate, I too was firing and people were catching
Word.
strays. The strays that you caught were not fired by him. The strays that you caught were
Mm.
fired by me. And that's
Mm.
the shame. I was taking the gun and pointing it at the people I love, you know, because you think somehow, and there's a lot of like youthful indiscretion that could have been avoided, can be avoided. And if there was anything that I said yesterday, it's just like, I wish you had told me. I wish you had said me. And you explained to me what was going on with you, why you didn't. You didn't even feel like I would be receptive to that, or what was going on with you. We all had to rectify certain perceived inadequacies, or whatever, to prevent us from having a lot of the honest conversations
Yeah.
we're capable of having now. But all I can do in the future is have those conversations with people younger than me, people my age, people older than me, about what is the intention when we get into this creative space, when we get into these endeavors and we work in community.
Yeah.
What is
What's
the
your
intention?
why?
And is the intention, what is your why? And I need to know that with anybody I'm working with. And again, you spoke about how at that show there wasn't many Black people. One of the most interesting things about my art and my audience is that it's not primarily Black. I have a lot of Black fans, but I have a rainbow coalition of fans, despite my overt pro-Black,
Mhm.
politics and the shirt and all that other shit. It I'm not off-putting to it, like, so it is a big tent thing. And in that respect, it's like they gotta know, anybody who comes into my circumference, whether they be Black or not, they
Right.
know what I'm about. And if you want to help, you
For
helping me
sure.
help Black people. And in turn, helping everybody. Because like I said, I do believe the greatest threat to humanity's very
Yeah.
existence is anti-Blackness. So when I alleviate anti-Blackness, inadvertently, I'm not only helping Black people. We
Yeah.
live in a fishbowl. If somebody cannot extrapolate by Jonas helping Black people, he's helping me as a non-Black person, then you aren't for this movement. You aren't for what I'm doing. If you look at what I'm doing and feel excluded by it because I prioritize Black people or because I talk about Black people, if you can't see your own human struggle in the struggle of Black people,
Yeah.
what I do is not for you. Because one of the things I think Black people are really forced to do is to find empathy, to find character, to see themselves in other stories. Because for so long there wasn't representation. You would have to watch these type of movies, that type of movie, this type of art, and you weren't seeing Black children. You weren't seeing Black men. You weren't seeing Black women. So you had to be like, no, I see myself in Bruce Lee. No, I see myself in the Green Hornet. No, I see myself in whatever other non-Black person, and envelop him into our culture. And that's why so many people treat the celebration within the Black community as this like gift. They got the golden ticket. Black
Mhm.
people love me. You know what I mean? If you're a non-Black artist or non-Black person and you have a pronounced,
Mhm.
large Black fan base, it is a
Yeah.
point of pride. No person is like, I wish I didn't have this massive Black audience. It's like, wow, Black people fuck with me. There's something deeply validating to non-Black people about
That's
Black people
true.
fucking with them, right? So like that really speaks to the way that Black people are forced to fuck and to invert that, when you have non-black people fucking with black people's art a lot of times, I don't necessarily believe they see themselves in it. They just enjoy the work. They don't love the black person. They love what the black person did, which is to say, I'll give you an example. White people love 50 Cent's song. White people love Eminem.
Mm,
They love 50 Cent's songs. They in the club. It's their birthday. Many men want them dead. All that shit. They don't love 50 Cent. Black people love
yeah.
50 Cent. White people love Eminem. White people love Elvis. White people love the Rolling Stones. White people
Mm-hmm.
love the Beatles. And the ones who love Jimi Hendrix, it's because they attempted to annex him. And that's what Band of Gypsies was about. He was like, no, I'm actually a
Right.
black person. And then miraculously, oh, he's dead. So
Yeah.
let's not even get into that.
That's
But the
interesting
point I'm
because I
trying
think
to make
about
is
that
that,
from like Amy Winehouse and Janis Joplin, where like black people are like, we love you, and they also died early.
yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder what, I don't know. I'm curious about that. I don't know.
I
Anyway.
mean, I don't want to get into weird conspiracy. I think what I think. But the point I'm trying to make is that, so when I, as an artist, make what amounts to pop music for the masses and large, but I say, don't get it twisted. This is about black people. This is for black people. I'm centering black people. If you take umbrage with that in any way, shape, or form, I assure you, it is you
Yeah, for
being
sure.
racist, not me. So there's this real thing about, only starting to understand that, only starting to see that in these recent years, and awareness of political, because even when I was quote unquote not for the streets in my early burglary years, somehow managing to only be philanderous with substances and not with a litany of would-be lovers or whatnot, it was still a fucking off of sorts. It was still like, because here's the thing, and I talked about this yesterday, I am a fucking snowflake. I am fucking 101. I don't walk around like, yeah, a lot of niggas, I've always been at this cutting edge tip of what amounts to innovation, what amounts to like very much on an island, turning around on my people like, yo, so what direction I go in is often the spear's tip, And so in that respect it's like, I have to be hyper cognizant and
Yeah.
aware of my effect, of my influence, of my ability. If being such a leader in any way, shape, or form is a
Yeah.
responsibility, not just a privilege. It's a responsibility. So you got to be like, yo, how am I affecting my people? What am I leading them to? What am I
Yeah,
saying
like,
is that, you know what I mean? What
so
am I
we talked
doing?
about this a little bit, and I think this is a good place to bring it up. Like, I think we're very similar in this way of being, um, I don't know, strategic, calculated, intentional, deliberate are some words that I would use to describe each of us, is in our uniqueness, but also how we make choices about where we show up in space, because we understand the responsibility, because people listen to us. Right? Like,
Right.
and
Right.
when you
Right.
realize that, it kind of it comes with this responsibility of being like, so what am I going to say? The
Mm-hmm.
new TikTok, Instagram story operation of having a microphone or having a platform, quote unquote, is a little different for me. I would go so far as to say us, as people who have been on stages performing. I've had a mic in my hand since I was 7. So I'm not unfamiliar
Mm-hmm.
with what it looks like to take the stage and make everybody in a room pay attention to what I'm going to say. That takes a certain kind of human to do that. How we move
Mm-hmm.
in community and in the world as a result of that, bearing that responsibility, has a lot to do with this concept of dignity, um, and
Mm-hmm.
not being um, messy or showing up in ways that are undignified ways, because what it does is creates harm and justification for more people to point at you and say, see, we knew the light was phony. We knew you don't really live in the light. We knew, we were waiting for you to fuck up. You know what I mean? And so carrying
Mm-hmm.
that responsibility can also make it really difficult to say, sometimes just the most human shit that comes to mind, to be flagrant, to be flippant, to say things, just to speak from parts of ourselves or from an inauthentic space for the sake of a jokey joke, right? It's like a,
Mhm.
I don't know, that's like a, it brings this acrid air to me when I think about that. So, I don't, being able to have these conversations and share so much of how you think, how we think and what we think in a way that is going to basically, like, once these words are transmitted from our mouths and get uploaded, we have no more responsibility for what happens with them after that, and that's scary, right? So I think sometimes
Right.
we, maybe it's the Libra, maybe it's the Capricorn, I don't know, but like, I think we have a tendency to over articulate, to be
Ah,
long-winded in explaining, to listen, my Clifton
yeah,
strengths,
yeah.
say what you will about, white supremacist modalities for testing personality types or whatever. My Clifton strength, number one strength is context and intellection.
You
It's my number one strength.
contextualize
I need to
everything.
know, let me tell you why I'm right. I'm going to tell you the history of this situation. This is the research that I did so that I could form an argument that would be valid and make sense before we take a step in this direction. I want you to know that I checked my notes and then I checked them twice, and now I'm going to do this next thing. And sometimes it makes it really difficult for me personally to fail because of that, because I put so much on preparing, planning, having integrity, being dignified in my approach, and being the spear's tip, right? In forging forward in a new direction. It can be incredibly devastating when things don't go as I intended. Things don't go well. And it can be really difficult
Yeah.
for me to
Right.
detach myself from the outcome of situations, which feeds perfectionism,
Yeah.
and also feeds the shame monster. Because if I did all this work, if I mastered all this context, if I give all this historical perspective and viewpoint, and then some white man gets mad and decides to make an Instagram page railing against it and calling for legal repercussions, did I fail? And the answer is hell nah.
Right.
But
No,
still,
no,
that rubs
not at all.
against this trigger, you know what I mean? Like, so
I
it
know.
rubs
Yeah, it
against
did. Ugh.
that part of my humanity and my humanness, because at the end of the day, I'm still a person. Like, yeah, the picture was dope. I am the human being who had the experience
Right.
of
Mhm.
having that second in my life be captured. And so there was everything that led up to, all the contextual background of everything that led up to the moment standing in that aisle and having a photograph snap that ended up on the cover. Like, I am the human that is inside of that
What?
experience. And the context of that is really important because it carries with it all of these parts that are loving and funny and jovial and skilled and dignified and, and solution oriented and all of these other things that make me me. And I think that we should get to live, it is a blessing and one of the greatest gifts to live into this version of myself, to have the gift of being able to stay well with my soul on this planet long enough to be actualized in this iteration of myself where I'm like, oh, and now my work is to help other folks achieve whatever version of actualization is real for them, like, and I don't get to have any say in what that looks like. I can't say what's good or
Well,
bad about it.
that's what I wanted to say too. That's one of the things that switched, I think, for me is that I really did realize the people make the art. The art, like there's one of these delusions artists have that's just, I'm willing to harm whatever and do whatever in the service of great art. So oftentimes you hear about filmmakers who put everybody in the crew through torturous experiences in order to make great art. So much abuse, so much harm of people in service of making the product. And I think that I was also somebody who believed in that. And that's when you talk
Mhm.
about the self-harm thing of like being the enfant terrible, you know what I mean? The genius, the tortured genius who wrings great art from the
Yeah,
torture of other people, so on and
you
so
were
it's
definitely
fucking bullshit.
big, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, tortured genius was a vibe for a while. Yeah.
and hurting people. And that's what I'm saying is it's like I realize I don't give a fuck what the songs are, whatever. If my people aren't good, if I don't take care of the people, the art suffers, but also who gives a fuck about the art? The people
Yeah.
are what matter most. The people in my life. So it's like the picture that we took was beautiful, but for a long time, perhaps I prioritized, look at this great picture we got, and not how is
Yeah.
that person doing? How is that person I took this picture of affected? What does this picture mean? And then the second thing, and then this is something I really want to give context to, and maybe you might find this unfortunate, but when we talk about the shade monster and when we talk about my ex bandmate, one thing that happened that I still wrestle with is that great shame of my debauched era and the things that I was doing in that time. He publicly laid out in this real sort of, and to me, that's something I to this day I have a difficult time I can't forgive this person. I mean, like when you talk about how it rubs up against the shame monster and this notion of wanting to be dignified, when somebody takes that agency from you and lays bare what is your shame to lay bare, what is your secrets, somebody tells your secrets, somebody puts your business in the streets, somebody like a lot of times that's common for people. For me, it was easily the most traumatizing, singularly, like I'm I, I say this all the time. I have not forgiven. I will fucking die with
Mhm.
this resentment. I don't know how or when I'll be able to be like, and I forgive that person because I can't think of any greater transgression towards me than to take what I perceive to be my greatest shame and stealing my agency of being able to rectify that in any public sphere how I see fit. To have that somebody else have taken that. And then we talked about this too. And when you had conversations with this person, they were like laying my shit out, and you're saying to yourself, well, is he okay? And that's not really being considered. But furthermore, is like a lot of times 10 years later, 7 years later, it's like, well, why can't you patch it up? Because I'm still hurt. Because I'm still mad. And I'm telling you in a real way, honest to God, this situation with this person, I am more hurt by my ex bandmate than this person ever could. Because in a real way here, you have validity, you have credibility. So when you went out and said, this is what's going on with Jonas, people knew it was the truth. And the contextualization of it is something I can't take back. I can't get my honor back. I can't get my pride back. I feel like something was stolen from me. I will never get back, and I will die
Ooh.
angry. I fucking shit you not. I shit you not. I try to envision scenarios where I'm like, you are forgiven. All is well. It's love. I'm gonna tell you something right now because I don't really give a fuck. We just in the spirit of like there was a time recently where I saw this person
Mhm.
across the room, right? And I was like, obviously I should go over there and just be like, it's all good. I couldn't do it. I couldn't even go up to him and just, it's good. I don't
Okay.
want to give you that. I literally don't even want, I want you to know. And like when I think the person saw my back, they saw I took off and they're like, yo, he's running from me. No, I cannot even give you the semblance of peace. I can't let you know it's good. I can't pretend that I know if I'd have went up to him and been like, yo, what's up? It would have been all love. We would have fucking hugged, bro. I don't want that. I want to. I seriously like when we talk about this whole scenario. What I'm most angry about is that fuck this dude, fuck this stalker. But like the debauched era and everything I went through in that experience to have that ruthlessly exposed. I don't think I'm capable of ever forgiving that. I really don't.
Um, anger is
Yeah,
listen,
I'll drink
I
the
don't I
poison.
wasn't gonna call it poison. Yeah,
It's
so anger
delicious.
anger is
Delicious.
a very valid experience and often the loudest. It has the most fire in it. It has the most verb. Um, anger wants us to know that a boundary has been crossed. You very clearly articulated the boundary that was
Mhm.
crossed as it relates to your
Mhm.
dignity and also your
Mhm.
story, which to go back to the shame piece, I haven't really heard you own it in like literal terms. I think that you're still maybe playing with the language of how you describe your debaucherous era in a way, and you're still very guarded with your story because of the violation of having had somebody else share their perspective,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
weaponize your
Mhm.
experience against you without you having agency.
Mhm.
So I hear that, and I
Mhm.
and
Invite me somewhere. Yeah.
well,
Invite me somewhere away from here cuz now I'm stewing.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
It's just the worst trigger. It's the worst fucking
so
trigger, bro.
forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for you. And so my question is, have you forgiven yourself?
Clearly not entirely, no.
Okay.
Clearly not
So
entirely.
the invitation that I want to share is this offering, called, it's an indigenous Polynesian prayer called Ho'oponopono. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
I think you've
the
said this before, but yeah,
Ho'oponopono
go on.
prayer is about being in right relationship. It is a method of correcting what has what breakdowns have occurred. There's a whole ceremonial procedure for it in community spaces. When someone has caused harm, they call in they call everybody in to space to reconcile. That's kind of been distilled and is in a lot of ways, it's reconciliation, but to set right is what it means. To set right,
Right.
not to fix what's
Mhm.
broken, but to like put things where they need to be to fall back into alignment. And in a lot of ways, the prayer, um I don't know, it's popularized lately. So there was like a million meditations of it on YouTube and things like that. And it kind of has
Mhm.
been succinctly distilled down to these four phrases that
Yeah.
function on
I remember, yep.
repentance, the request for
Mhm.
forgiveness, the expression of gratitude, and love. And so the first thing is to just say, I'm sorry.
I'm
The
sorry.
second is, please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
Then you say, thank you. And you
Thank
close
you.
it with, I love you.
I love you.
Those four phrases, repeated to yourself as a meditation, allow you to center in on the debaucherous version of yourself.
Say him
I'm
again.
sorry.
Say him again.
Please forgive
I'm
me.
sorry.
Thank
Please
you.
forgive me.
I love you.
Thank you. I love you.
To some degree, we've said that to the pit through the conversation that we've had over the course of this hour, to set right, to exact our own version of amends. It's interesting how we might easily give that off to our violators before we drink the medicine. So you're willing to drink the poison of anger, but are you willing to sip from the calabash of forgiveness for yourself? There is an antidote.
Not yet.
So if you
I know.
forgive yourself, that clears out the shame, it dissipates the guilt, and it frees you to kind of start to vibrate on a higher level where you can begin to like exist in the realm of appreciation and celebration for all that you've accomplished. Because, like June Jordan said, some of us did not die. Some of us did not die. Jonas,
I mean,
millions,
yeah.
millions of people
Mhm.
died
Died.
and are still dying,
Died.
dead,
Off this shit.
dead,
Off the same shit.
toothless,
Dead. Yeah.
incarcerated, penniless, still addicted, injured, scarred,
Yeah, I know.
maimed, dead.
I know. I know. I know.
You
I
are
know.
not one of them. And
Can I
so,
tell
whatever
you?
survivor's burden you carry is not yours.
I'm just so fucking mad. I'm sorry, you know, and I hear that, and I've said that, and it's funny because what I immediately think is like all these other areas of my life. I've said that, I've meant that, I've relinquished so much, but it is focalized in this center point of what I just feel is like this tremendous betrayal that like I I'm just trying to let you know right now. I hear
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying. I take it in. I cannot abide. I don't know when. I don't know when. I don't know when.
Whose betrayal,
Like I
though?
won't feel so
Whose
fucking betrayed.
betrayal? Did you betray yourself?
Well, yeah, but but here's my thing about that, and I just want to say this. It's the extension of oneself. It's the way that you that like perhaps in no other form of my own work did I use what I was to shelter, to guard, to prop up, except the handful of people in my circle, the people who were on that stage, the
Mm-hmm.
people who were in that band. So when we talk about the sense of betrayal, it's that it's like when one extends themselves and get burnt for it, they learn this gritty lesson of no longer extend yourself, right? Which I would not say I've learned. I continue to extend myself. But what I'm saying to you is that like this primordial rage and anger comes from the fact that like, you know, I was the greatest fucking thing that ever happened to
Mm.
you, and you fucked it off. So I'm mad at that person betraying themselves by blocking the blessing of Jonas in their life. Because here's the fact of the matter. You could be here now. You could be reaping these blessings. You could get all there is to get from this giving tree that is Jonas. I wish I could give it to you. I love to share.
Okay.
I can't. It makes me angry that I can't, because the fact of the matter is you
How
don't
does it make you
value
feel
it.
to, first of all, is it true? Is that true? Is
What
what
true?
you just said true? Is it absolutely true that you would give everything to this person now if it had not been for,
Fuck yeah.
okay?
Fuck yeah.
So how does it
Fuck yeah.
make you feel when you
Fuck yeah.
believe the thought that all of this is for not, that can never happen now? How does it make you feel?
Like I said, bro, I feel mad alone in the respect to where, like, I wish there was a Cody in this creative space. I wish there was one nigga I could be like, yo, this is my main man in this space. But it's still me alone in a room
Mhm.
writing songs. You know what I mean? It's still me alone in a room conceptualizing. It's still me alone in a room. And I want so desperately to have one or two or three people in that room with me, the band of brothers, all that shit. And it's just like, it's not a luxury in my
Who
life.
would you be without that thought?
Well, I think most of the time
Who
I am
is
that person,
who is that?
which is
Who
to
are you
say,
without that thought?
who, you know, a very intrepid, a very happy, a very self-satisfied guy. Like I'm somebody who's very joyous. I'm a joyful individual. I'm buoyant. I'm not miserable. I'm not dark. I'm not gritty. But like, I'm an angry person. I'm an irritable person. I'm somebody who snaps. And when I start to internalize, what is it that makes me simultaneously very joyful, generally in a good spirit, and like prone to snapping in a bit? And it's that dichotomy. It's like, I just want to be chill. Why is it that like I'm at the razor's edge of perpetual irritation? And I think it's partly because it's like some of these traumas that I hold on to in that respect that I cannot relinquish. I've deluded myself into believing they're fuel. Like, I can't lie. There's a certain empty, hollow joy I receive from the idea of like, I know you're seeing this. I know you seeing me out here shining. I know you hearing about me shining. I know the word. And it's like, and I know that's hurting you. And I'm trying to glean joy from it. And it's not even joyful. There's no joy to be had. It's like there isn't even the possibility of rectification. There's not the possibility. I don't foresee. I cannot allow it. Like, literally, I'm furious about the idea that having any semblance of peace would be further humiliation for me.
Okay. Um
And
so
because the
that so
dignity thing and all that shit.
like anger came back. Um and I'm curious like what's behind anger, and I can't anger came back so fast that I wasn't sure I could actually like tease out what was
I
behind it.
told you, it's just like
Yeah, and
lurking
you're prone
beneath
to
the
snap, but
surface.
there's also, oh, you said joyous and buoyant and like and that that part of you, right? That the not the party that is not dark, that does live in the light, right?
Right.
That part and anger, like which one do you want to exist in for just a moment? Like what feels most active for you to explore?
Eh, I mean, we talk about the anger. I'm in the anger place right now. And I'm real full of the anger. The anger
Okay.
is making me angry. You know, it's really
Where do you
it's
feel
so
it in
that's
your
where we're at.
body?
I'm obviously relishing. I would say it feels
Mm,
something like
okay.
heartburn. I don't have heartburn, but I feel a burning in my chest that I would equate to
Mhm.
heartburn right here, and it's
Mhm.
you know I
Hurt.
feel it. I feel it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it
It's
before.
interesting. I lit a
Hmm.
green candle when we were talking, which is the heart chakra. And it's almost, when we were talking earlier, that was the color that I chose, and it's almost burned out, but it's still there. And so I wonder if you could visualize maybe setting yourself apart from the burn, like literally visualize it outside of your body at a distance enough from you so that you can see it, just to get some distance from it.
Hmm.
How do you, Jonas, calm, clear, compassionate, and curious about it, confident that you'll be able to explore it, maybe even with the courage to explore this big anger that just pops off and starts a fire in your chest? To be as creative as you know yourself to be and connect to the anger. What do you see? What does it look like when it's not burning inside your chest?
Like I took the whole trachea out, and now
And
I'm looking
what's
at the
what is
trachea.
the
Like I'm
condition of the
looking at
trachea that you're looking at?
it's like glowing green, like it's
Mm,
nuclear. Like it's like it looks like glowing radon. Madame Curie just discovered uranium green, and but also now I don't have
okay.
a trachea. Now I am
Ah.
voiceless. You know, in a sense of like somebody told me at the beginning of the year they're like, I want you to be angry again, and I was like, why? And I obviously internalized
Mm,
that. And so, what I'm telling you in a real way is that I've also turned said anger into my fuel. Like, I don't want to relinquish the resentment because I rely on it.
mm.
When I'm tired and I don't want to get up and I don't want to do what I have to do, I go, I have to rub somebody's face in a pile of dog shit. Get up. That's what works
Wow.
for me. It works for me. When there's nothing else there, it's like, got to do the chore of rubbing somebody's
So
face in a pile of dog shit.
in the moment
That's
before
unfortunate.
the dog shit, like, I don't know, I want to go back to, you said that you don't have a voice. When you remove the burn and it's
Mhm.
radioactive, glowing green away from you, like, I want to just take a minute to be in the part that doesn't have a voice, without you admonishing the part that wants to admonish that part to rub somebody's face in dog shit, to just like be in the stillness of that space that's created. What is going on there?
You mean in
Mhm.
the state of voicelessness? Probably a state of meaninglessness, in
What
a
does it
state
look
of like,
like?
if I don't, I
Like
mean,
who's in there or what is in there? Voiceless and meaningless.
I mean, that's just it. It's just there's nothing in there, and it's just hollow. It's very empty. Where it's like I live in light and I live in love, but I run off hate. It's fucked up. Like, even getting clean, a large part of it was like tremendous resentment towards the rehab facility. I used to, like, I was a legend in that place. I used to call the center office the Death Star. Whenever the employees would walk by, I go, bam, 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 bam. But I was just like so, anti-authoritarian. But also, it's like, I remember them sitting. I remember once, and this is perhaps the singular moment of anger. It's like, we were in one of these fucking shit ass 12-step meetings, and this guy's sitting up there being like, "You are not special. You are not a snowflake." And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, the fuck I'm not? I know. I'm not about to get up there and be like, "Hi, my name is Jonas, and I'm an addict. I am not a snowflake." I'm just like, no, I don't give a fuck. Nobody's taking my snowflake. So, like, instantly, what did that do? That reinforced my individuality. It reinforced my necessity to, in fact, I will show you. Here I am, clean.
How
6,
is
7 years
that?
later. You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
and we celebrate your creativity, and your sobriety. But like, how does the snowflake? How does the snowflake in you exist near the radioactive core that burns in your heart, that is driven toward hate? Like, where is the
It still snows in
ah?
Chernobyl.
Life came back to
You
Chernobyl.
know? Life came back to Chernobyl, but it's still radioactive. You still can't eat the snow.
Mm. So,
You know?
how do you feel? How do you feel about the voicelessness? What do you want to fill it with?
I could probably relax, bro. I could probably not have this overarching, like, you know, the sense of purpose, the sense of fulfillment, the sense of drive. All of that is a little bit antithetical
Mm.
to rest,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, like, I am
Mm.
restless. I would perhaps be restful if I didn't look at the removal of the radioactive trachea as a
Yeah.
death of sorts. If I saw it as an opportunity, but I still have much to do. We still
Mm-hmm.
have much work to do. I can't imagine the work getting done without the radioactive trachea.
Well, I
Not
mean,
yet, at
so
least.
if you were thinking about this as a nuclear physicist, how do you harness nuclear power? How do you make that a safe source?
Well, I'm
I
not a
mean, but
nuclear
I'm gonna
physicist,
say, but
so I'm
you
gonna
are.
guess. You know,
This doesn't
yeah.
have to be correct, but I mean, like, if we're being creative in this space and like
Okay, okay.
playing with
We're being
solutions, like of
creative.
what to do
Yeah.
with a radioactive core that is costing you rest, which also will necessitate your efficacy in the work that you have to do. Uh, do you agree that
Hmm.
you're going to need some rest? You
I
need some
do agree.
rest.
I do agree. I do agree.
Because what's the
Need
radioactive
some
core costing you? What's its what Let me okay, I'm going to back up. When you see
Yeah.
the radioactive core,
Hmm.
if you could just like, what is its purpose? What's its job? What does it do for you?
Well, what is
What does it
nuclear
do for
power's
you? For you
job?
specifically? Mhm.
Keeps the lights on. Keeps the lights
Okay.
on. You know what I mean? It runs the bat, like I said. This engine
Okay.
runs
And
off
what is
resentment.
it costing Jonas?
What is it costing me? I mean, the most terrifying answer is that I don't know
Mm.
yet.
But what do you know?
You know. I think of the word serenity. I do
Serenity
not experience
now.
serenity. Yeah, that doesn't work. much, much like
It
Frank
doesn't work.
Costanza will tell you, it's as valuable as screaming "hoochie mama"
It
into
does
the air.
not
It
work.
does not work. I do
Mm,
not experience serenity. I am never on the beach with umbrellas in
yeah.
my pineapple.
You hate the
I hate the
sun.
beach.
Mm,
I hate the sun. Well, less now. I like the sun. I like sunflowers, but I'm not sun and fun. I'm
okay.
still doom and gloom.
But you also live in the light
Yeah,
and walk in the light
I
and
know.
are and
I know. But
and you
it's like I
see
can't
yourself
enjoy that light. Like I can't go to the barbecue. I want y'all to have
because you
barbecues.
have
I
a
can't come to the
radioactive
barbecue.
leak that is existing that you're carrying around in your chest and in your throat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how what is
Mhm.
the plan for containment and cleanup so that you can continue to use your energy in a way that is in service to your higher self? Like, what do you, I mean, is there anything else that the radioactive core wants to say to you, wants you to know about its purpose before we move on? Like, and how does it feel? What is it
Well,
like to
I
be
mean,
Jonas's radioactive core, actually? That's what I'm curious about. What is it like to be that green trachea oozing? I don't know. Maybe I added that. In my imagination it oozes, but
yeah, that's gross. That's a gross addition, but perhaps it's valuable. Perhaps I should consider the ooze. That would give me more impetus to get rid of it. If I knew it was oozing, if I'd have known it was oozing this whole time, not glowing. Glowing is it was incandescent, you know. So no, it's like
listen,
Toxic Avenger, where before
you
it
said
was,
Chernobyl, so
it was.
that's what I don't know.
I know, I didn't get, but no. Let's to go with that. What is it like? I feel like ultimately we know nuclear power is harnessed effectively and many times, but the world seeks to get away from nuclear energy, right? But we need it too much
So what did okay.
right now. So to me, is it's like I realize that I sort of live in a perpetual cycle of resentment and self satisfaction.
Mm.
There are moments where I'm just like, and the resentment is often because I'm not self satisfied
And
enough.
perhaps this what well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what's limiting your ability to be satisfied?
I don't know what external validation I'm
Perhaps
still
it could
looking
be
for. I
I mean,
believe in internal validation. I don't know. I believe in that, and I give it to myself a lot of times. But obviously, there is a
mhm,
chip on my shoulder, a Utah-sized chip on my shoulder, and that's what makes me ambitious. That's what makes me read the books, do the work, write the songs, go to the gym, all this stuff. It's not from this. As much as I see the value in empowerment and in love and all this other shit, this is a rage filled engine, and I'm terrified of no rage. I am more because that the absence of rage to me is just abject terror
mm,
and defenselessness.
mhm,
You know, the agency, my agency is springs from the ability to get angry
mhm,
first. So like what made me claw up off the pavement, what made me continue to is how fucking pissed I was. And how pissed I still am, and how I hate that nigga to my dying day, and I'm using it, and I'm not
well,
gonna give it
I
up.
think that you just, um, hmm, what do I wanna say? I think that
I hate that nigga like I hate white supremacy, bro. Dead
I'm
ass.
gonna say, like, what if you are that nigga? What if it's really a
Ah, yeah.
self-loathing
Oh, definitely,
I didn't I didn't expect you to say
definitely,
that, and
definitely.
I'm like, this is yeah, like,
What?
yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure.
To just
I'm
agree.
like, "What?"
I'm aware. I'm hyper self aware as a trauma. I'm aware. I just swear to God, I'm not aware of the way out. Like sometimes you ask me these questions, I don't know.
I think
I
that
can't see
we
my
were
way out
close
this
to a
shit.
part of, like, where the radioactive core kinda stepped aside to create some space for the terror of Ye
Yeah,
yeah.
we were getting
Then
there,
you
and
were
then I was like,
like,
ooh,
"I don't wanna,"
ooh.
and that's fine. I'm
I mean, but we could go there. We could talk about. Okay, so I'll say this.
okay.
Let's bring it on home. We are Black people in a world trying to
Mhm.
extract our life force
Mhm.
and capitalize on it. We exist in a state of high, like we must be on alert. We are, you know what I mean? So it's like the vigilance necessary. I just feel like, like the hyper awareness of the political situation Black people are in and all this other stuff is, it's like, I just don't, it's like if I was serene, it just seems like an ignorance of that. It's like, when you talk about the self-loathing, it's like, those were 10 years, those early burglary years, debauchery years, those were 10 years I could have been doing this work, and I'd be 10 years, but it was 10 years I was just fucking off, lionizing Black women in my life and objectifying non-Black women, and just a lot of just gross, ugly, nasty shit that it's like you want to compensate for. You want to double up. So it's like, I wake up at fucking 4 in the morning. I go to bed at 11, bro. And it's like, it's like, because I got twice as much work. I got shit to make up for, but also at the same time, it's like, I got people to prove wrong. I got grudges to settle. I just like
Mm.
vendettas, if it's not with, and it's like with myself. Obviously, the vendettas with myself. And then one day, will I look in the mirror and be like, I forgive you? When I die. I don't know what that means. I like when I what to me, I have equated all of the engine, the combustible engine, it's running
Mhm.
off combustion. It's not green. My engine is not
Mm.
environmentally friendly. It is putting out excessive CO2 and running off the consumption of all the natural resources in and around it, in a sense of to where it's like, I don't have this clean, green, sustainable. It's like I'm burning something of myself in an unsustainable fashion, and I'm working towards healing that in a real way. But it's like, I'm telling you, the centerpiece of it that I have internalized and I've centered as perhaps the greatest betrayal, transgression against me that I can think of. Not my mom functionally abandoning me at 13 years old, not anything else. It's this motherfucker telling the world what the fuck I was going through in this long and winding Facebook post, and seeing this dog pile of people gleefully celebrating and discussing the gritty details of my lowest moment. Like, and then having other people being like, look at what they saying about you and blah, blah, blah. I hate all them niggas to this day. People I don't know. Unfortunately, somebody had the wherewithal to send me the comment threads, which were like, this motherfucker went on Facebook and said what he said, and it's hundreds of comments. And I'm just seeing all these names and all these people who are laugh out loud, who are liking. And without getting into, I know somebody else who went through something similar, and the way that they responded was to literally make a laundry list and try to attack all of those people and just do a bunch of mess. All I did was just be like, I got something for y'all niggas. And so every single time that and to be fair, there are people now I interact with who at that point they were on that list. And I don't secretly
Mm.
harbor resentment for them. I save all of that for the lone center. But I'm telling you, it's like, I know there's nothing more this person would want than a harmonious reconciliation. And that's why I
What if
can't
he
give it to
doesn't
him.
want that? Does it matter then?
I still wouldn't give it to him. So if he didn't want, but I know he does for a fact.
What does it mean to you that he wants a reconciliation?
That he's watching, that I'm getting another opportunity every day to shove his face in a pile of dog shit. It's fucked up,
I
huh?
mean,
It's
I don't know.
gross.
Do you shove your dog's face in its shit when it has a mistake, has an accident?
I
Oh.
love my dog.
Do you shove your face in your shit when you make a mistake?
I do love myself. I hate this person.
Love and hate.
And I don't get me wrong. I know that the opposite of love is indifference. Hate is like radioactive love. It's like, but
I
this
mean,
is that.
yeah,
It is a thing. It's not just love is hate is just love with a
it's
cape and a cow.
radioactive
No,
love,
no,
but
no.
you
Hate
identified
is
as being
hate.
radioactive and referred to the thing that bumps your chest
I
as a
told you. It's running
okay.
off resentment.
Here's some things.
I go to the resentment station and I
Here are
pour
some
gas
things
in
that
my
I'm
tank.
hearing that as far as like where this leaves us in this moment,
Yeah.
is it's not sustainable. That it's costing you your rest, which in the work of liberation and movement building and community establishment, you being radioactive at your heart center, no.
Doesn't bode well. No.
So if
No.
you apply the fact that healing is possible,
Woo! You better stop. No, you're real though. That's the
you
real
have
though.
a
Healing is like
responsibility.
I'm telling you right now. I'm saying to you, healing is impossible, and
Right.
that's just not true.
So
I
I
just
hear
can't
you
see
not
it
being
right
able
now.
to see it right now, which is why the invitation to be.
Like I want to go cry right now, but I'm just so
Yeah.
angry. You know what I mean? I wanna feel other. Like I remember going to my therapist and them being like, they said this to me once, and this was not this therapist. This is many therapists ago, and they said, you transmute all of your
Mm-hmm.
emotions into anger.
Yeah.
And I was like, so fuck you.
I told you when you were going to speak on that panel, and I was like, make sure that you like gauge your. I'm not trying to tone police you, but like you sound angry. You're like, I'm not angry. I'm just passionate. See how I talk, and I was like, okay, like, but the people who don't know you might
Oh
not know
Lord.
that, friend. Like, you gotta.
No.
So
It's
but
undermining my
here's what I
work.
think is a
Yeah.
huge success today. You identified this
Mm-hmm.
radioactive core, and you've used that term a couple of times. You said you were radioactive yesterday, and I just want you to
Yeah.
consider, like, as you acknowledge it and sit with it, like, how can you. One of the things that you said that it feels like to be the radioactive core is like nobody wants this, but everybody needs it. Everybody needs this energy, but they're afraid of it. They don't know how to harness it. It seems like this huge big thing. But given everything that you've said about all of the things that make you extraordinary and your capacity to develop as a songwriter and to be an artist and a community activist and to heal yourself and to carry this chip on your shoulder to this degree, it's like there's some questions that come up for me like, well, what did you learn in hell in those 10 years? What did you learn? Wow, because you were still, yeah, it was 10 years of fucking off, but you learned things. And the things that you learned aided in your ability to survive them. And so, how do you honor that
Yeah.
dude? How do you tell him, we did not die? We did not waste a decade. We made it out. Oh, won't you celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and failed? There's cause for celebration in that. And so, in the softening, in the extinguishing of the radioactive burn, there is a way for you to also transmute that. If you can transmute all of your emotions into anger, I believe that you as an alchemist can also transmute them into something else that is just as useful and
Will.
and
As will.
forever,
Mm.
henceforth, because you say so. It takes focus. It takes forgiveness. This is the magic part, is the transmuting those emotions to choose a place that you wish to be. And sometimes when we down here in the root area with the shame and the guilt, it can feel like a really heavy lift, right? But it's interesting because anger is a higher frequency. Anger is a mid-level frequency of like movement that's above shame, that radiates above shame and guilt. And it's very close to pride and courage and
Very
courage.
close to pride. Mm-hmm.
So in the
Mm-hmm.
transmutation
Mm-hmm.
of your emotions, you have other options besides anger. And if the anger is suffocating you or limiting you in ways that are no longer, um, reasonable to the life that you're creating for yourself, when you transmute it, it's not so much letting it go and then being left voiceless and empty and meaningless, but think about what you want it to become. Like, what do It Still Snows in Chernobyl is like a beautiful song title.
Yeah, it still snows in Chernobyl.
So,
These are heavy questions that I need to
yeah,
rest
I
with.
think we should probably.
I mean, not
Yeah,
rest
well,
with,
you do need
ironically,
to
yeah.
rest. I
But
also listen to your body tell you what it needs.
mm-hmm,
Your body needs rest. There is a desire
mm-hmm.
for serenity. There are parts of you who do want to enjoy the sunshine and the cocktail. Perhaps you need a fucking vacation. Perhaps you need to celebrate or reward yourself for your accomplishments.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't. Yeah, somebody asked me the other day. They're like, "How you gonna celebrate?" And I was like, "Man, I don't know how to
Ooh,
celebrate."
that's my favorite question to ask is how do we want to celebrate your accomplishments? You have a graduation coming up. Like, how do you celebrate your
Yeah,
sobriety? Like, celebrate
I
that
don't
you've
know.
crushed these goals. Like, you have a lot of work to do that the energy, if harnessed and targeted toward yourself in like a loving and receptive way, could really um be the solution that this could resolve this because it's an energy drain for you to. It's like you're off gassing the radioactive energy toward this individual, but I think it's like
Yeah,
there's another place that
it
it
could
could
go.
go.
Why don't we utilize the off gas?
I
Let's
don't know.
utilize the off gas, instead of and let it dissipate into a fruitless air of resentment for
And
somebody
how does
that's
this look
not.
like
I
community
mean,
care
you know what?
too? Like
Honestly,
this also looks like community care.
oh
You know what
fucking
I
hell,
mean? Like,
yeah,
I
it
don't know.
does.
We hope that perhaps this person hears this episode.
All my haters watch me.
Me too. All my haters watch me too. I feel like my haters are my biggest fans.
And I want to say something to my haters,
All
and we
right.
can wrap it up
Hi,
like this.
haters.
Okay.
What you want to say to them?
Please forgive me. I'm sorry. Thank you. I love you.
Y'all, this has been episode 2 of What Would It Look Like? And I didn't see it coming, but it feels good to me. Just ashe. And amen. Yeah.
Ashe.
Yeah.
Amen.
I love you too,
I love you
friend.
very much.
Thank you for today. This was a
That was
good
great. I
time. We'll
appreciate
be
it.
back.
And I want to pick up like we got like I want to do what we were gonna do, but we had to address this. And I want to talk about what we're about to do, but
Bye. This is the peace
to my
sign.
people,
Bye. All right.
bye,
We love you. Bye.
bye, bye.
Stop recording.
Gonna shiver at the setting sun. Glimmers on your every skin. To be here with you now. It's time lasts for a while. Don't worry about a thing.